He was unexpectedly hit by a car. Unbelievably, his phone buzzed with a notification. He stared at the message from the insurance company. The girl, on the brink of death, slowly lost consciousness. But just as life slipped away, her hand brushed against her phone. With a series of beeps, a notification of successful purchase echoed in her mind. After a moment of darkness, she jolted awake. She stared blankly at the crowd around her, the scene as chaotic as a marketplace. A ding-dong sounded. On the screen, a notification about transmigration approval appeared, leaving the already bewildered girl even more confused. You are reader number 3.1415926. It's your turn now. Startled by the sudden voice, the girl flinched. She slowly turned her head. A small dog hovered in the air, a goofy expression on its face. Woof, what you talking about? I'm the transmigration examiner. The girl's confusion deepened. You're already dead. This is the afterlife. The girl slowly began to process the situation. A look of sadness washed over her. Those gods in charge of the afterlife have recently taken an interest in the cultural industry. Have you read any online novels? As the goofy dog explained, the girl gradually learned that the gods of this world, in order to boost their death KPIs, were sending souls into fictional worlds for a second chance at life. The goofy dog, seeing the girl's silence, spoke up again. Woof, do you have a preferred genre? After a moment of silence, the girl abruptly lifted her head. With wide, earnest eyes, she uttered 3 words: romantic fantasy, group pet. Then, as if she'd swallowed a confidence potion, the girl launched into a passionate, enthusiastic account of her bleak life. But as a seasoned reader of countless online novels, she was utterly convinced of her choice. The goofy dog, watching the girl as if she were in a job interview, said with a grin, "Woof, your opinion will be taken into consideration, but whether it's used or not is up to me." With that, it slapped a bone-shaped tablet. The girl stared expectantly at the large screen. A ding-dong sounded. Looking at the information displayed, the girl turned to stone. She had drawn the hell difficulty level. Woof, she was completely petrified. Holy cow, this girl's flying high. That's a 1 in 100,000 chance. Congratulations, congratulations. Despite the goofy dog's congratulations, the girl remained motionless, still frozen in place. Others noticed the information she'd drawn. Hey, look at that unlucky soul. Let's go congratulate her. By now, the girl was utterly devastated, her spirit crushed. She'd forgotten she was already dead. Looking at the name of the character she was about to become, she felt a wave of sadness wash over her. She regretted ever reading that tragic novel. Who will I be in the novel? She asked, her voice hollow. The goofy dog, stars swirling above its head, replied, Woof, since you love being a group pet so much, I'm having you transmigrate into a little girl. And she has pink hair, and she's from the villainous noble family that bullies the protagonist. Well, she's from the servant family that gets bullied. The girl stared blankly at the goofy dog. What does that have to do with being a group pet? Even a stray dog sniffing grass has more screen time than that. But the goofy dog remained unmoved by her questions, pushing her towards the cycle of reincarnation. Don't worry, it said. Just then, the goofy dog noticed a notification flashing on its bone-shaped tablet, a notification about the 18th generation. It was utterly shocked. Holy crap, what the? I just realized you're the first user to purchase the Transmigration Human Beast package, so you really don't have to worry. The girl, thoroughly confused, was about to ask a question when the goofy dog suddenly flew into the air. Gotta go. I have a date with Little Flower tonight. Don't waste my time. With that, it unleashed a doggy 18th generation kick and sent the bewildered girl flying. Arg, I'm not done with you. From young woman to adorable child, but all she wanted was to go home. Ding dong, commencing connection to the Transmigrator Assistance System. As the system's alerts chimed, the girl was roused, her consciousness slowly returning. The girl's eyes snapped open. Staring at her hands in disbelief, she scrambled out of bed and rushed to the mirror. Staring back at her was a little girl with a head full of pink hair. The bewildered girl became even more bewildered. I've transmigrated. After pinching her cheeks for 2.5 hours, the girl slowly came to her senses. After all, being cute wasn't going to help her. She immediately collapsed on the ground, wanting to go back. A map suddenly appeared before her eyes. The girl's face was filled with astonishment. Then she remembered the plot of the novel. But because her memory was so hazy, the girl didn't know what she would face next. She collapsed to the ground again, begging the administrator for help. With a booming sound, a bookshelf sprang up from the ground. The system's voice echoed in her ears. It explained that every book it had ever read left a mark on the shelf. The girl's face lit up with joy. She immediately went forward to find her own story. Among a pile of angst-ridden novels, she found the book. Looking at the complete table of contents, the girl breathed a long sigh of relief. Suddenly, a clever idea struck her. With a greedy look on her face, she asked, "System, are there any other benefits?" A ding-dong sound rang out. The system immediately scattered something on the ground. In an instant, glittering gold coins covered the floor. A total of 120 million. These were all from the transmigration longevity package she had purchased just before her death, and she could use them to buy items in the store. With 2 swipes, a panel instantly appeared in front of the girl. Various skills were displayed on it. The system helpfully chimed in, "Little genius learning machine, click wherever you want. Mom won't have to worry about my learning glasses anymore." The system wanted her to spend money, but the girl didn't care and started learning directly. With 2 dong sounds, she selected the memory she needed, just as she was filled with fighting spirit, ready to confront her destiny. A loud bang startled her awake. "Hey, Aylette, you're here after all." Looking at the girl who suddenly appeared, little Aylette was startled. Before she could react, the girl shouted, "Come quickly. She's here. Aylette is hiding here." With the sound of the ground shaking, a muscular woman entered the room. "So you were here, you lazy freeloader. Get to the kitchen and help out." It turned out the newcomer was the head maid and her daughter, Nay. They had always looked down on their family. "Are you talking about me?" Little Aylette was completely confused. The head maid grabbed her tiny body. This good-for-nothing freeloader, who else could it be? The girl had unexpectedly transmigrated into the body of a 3-year-old. Unexpectedly, she was picked up by the head maid and told to help in the kitchen. Just then, 2 more people barged in. "Wait, head maid, Aylette is so young. How can she help in the kitchen?" A man dressed in patched trousers shouted at the head maid. A pink-haired boy beside him echoed the man's words. Little Aylette, still disoriented, looked at the boy with the same hair color as hers, and immediately realized that they were her father and older brother. Although the man was the only remaining alchemist in the Duke's mansion, due to his obsession with singing and dancing, his abilities were not outstanding. "Prince, it's the young master's lesson time now. What are you doing here? Go do what you're supposed to do. And you useless alchemist. She's already 2.5 years old. Do you plan to protect her forever? But isn't a 3-year-old supposed to be exempt from chores?" Hearing Prince's words, Aylette shuddered. Nay was the head maid's daughter. Faced with Prince's questioning, the head maid immediately became furious. "How can my daughter be compared to her? Nay has to learn tea ceremony. How could she do this kind of work? Stop talking nonsense. If you interfere again, I'll tell the madam." Seeing the head maid's blatant favoritism, little Aylette was about to speak when a finger poked her. "Hey, why aren't you crying today? Weren't you scared after I slapped you yesterday? Are you not scared today?" Aylette didn't mind Nay's blatant antagonism. After sorting out the relationships between the characters, she immediately stepped forward. "Head maid, please don't be angry. Leave the kitchen work to me." Looking at her father and brother's worried expressions, she smiled brightly. "It's okay. I'll do a good job." She then opened the system store and purchased the descendant of a great chef skill. With a fearless expression, she thought, "I'll let you little shrimps see the power of an R&B player." Then came a flurry of activity. After washing the broccoli, Aylette grabbed the green onions and began chopping with impressive speed, leaving the surrounding maids utterly bewildered by the tiny girl's proficiency. The carrots and broccoli were now perfectly prepped. The garlic and onions were minced and ready. The king oyster mushrooms were sliced, and the cream was whipped to just the right consistency. Watching Aylette's methodical efficiency, the already astonished maids grew even more so. "My arms ache. Can I rest for a bit?" Seeing Aylette's own desire for a break, a maid quickly agreed. Aylette promptly sat down. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then, she abruptly stood up. "I'm rested. Let's get back to work." The maid stared, dumbfounded by her sudden burst of energy. "Just look at her. It's amazing enough that she finished her own tasks. But now she's encroaching on our territory," they whispered amongst themselves. Unbeknownst to them, Aylette was reveling in the experience points she was gaining. She suspected there would be other rewards for leveling up. The maids, charmed by her diligence, showered Aylette with praise. The head maid observed the scene, scowling. What's going on with this little brat? I didn't bring her here to be praised. Girl unexpectedly reborn as a 3-year-old. Just because she bought cheats before she died, she's not afraid to level up and crush the villains. Just as she was brimming with energy and ready to conquer this world, trouble came knocking. Resigned to her fate in the kitchen, she heard the head chef's voice. Elette, come and taste this soup. The chef's request caused a ripple of surprise among the maids. Heavens, head chef, aren't you always supremely confident in your own cooking? What's gotten into you today? The head maid, intent on putting Elette down, intervened. Hey, Pessa, what are you doing? How can you let this little girl taste your cooking? Pessa, the head chef, bristled. Head maid, shouldn't you be working instead of gossiping? This is my kitchen, and I don't need your input. Realizing her misstep, the head maid backpedaled. Come here, then, she conceded. The head chef dipped a spoon into the soup and offered it to Elette. Just as the little girl was about to take a sip, she silently summoned her cheat, activating RMB's magic ice. 9th level tasting activated. Without hesitation, Elette slurped down the soup. It could use a spoonful of evaporated milk to brighten the flavor, she declared. The head chef stared at her, a slow smile spreading across his face. Elette Rodeline, he began, would you like to learn to cook with me? The already buzzing kitchen erupted in further commotion. They couldn't believe the notoriously picky head chef was taking Elette under his wing. Elette feigned nonchalance. Cooking? Sure, she agreed, inwardly ecstatic. After all, experience points were practically waving at her. She glanced at the head maid, who trembled with disbelief. She couldn't believe she'd inadvertently helped this little pest. Furious, the head maid stormed out of the kitchen, leaving Elette beaming. As time passed, Elette began her culinary apprenticeship. Seeing her diligently practicing, the other maids offered to help, but Elette politely declined, a mischievous glint in her eyes. She was close to leveling up and wasn't about to hand over precious experience points. Unable to persuade her, the maids went to take a break, leaving Elette to her rhythmic chopping. As she worked, a wave of resentment washed over her. In her past life, she'd been a corporate drone, working tirelessly. Now, after being reincarnated, she was still toiling away. She felt a pang of frustration for not being reborn into a life of pampered ease. Lost in thought, tears welled up in her eyes. Suddenly, a voice startled her. Her older brother stood in the doorway. So this is where you are. Are you all right? He asked, approaching her. I'll take over now. You go and rest. You've worked hard. Touched by his genuine concern, Elette didn't refuse this time. She obediently sat down. Then, she noticed the welts on his hands. What happened to your hands? She asked, alarmed. Prinz looked embarrassed. Oh, it's because the young master got his homework wrong. It wasn't too bad today, though. I finished his homework for him before handing it in. But Elette felt a pang of sympathy for him. This won't do. Let's put some ointment on it. We can go find father together. Prinz, however, refused. No way. If father finds out, I definitely won't be able to go to tutoring. I'd rather get beaten than miss out on magic lessons. Does father even know? Elette was utterly astonished. Elette, what's wrong with you? Didn't we agree? You eat my snacks, and you keep my secret. Prinz was equally puzzled by his sister's unusual behavior. Elette, at a loss for words, decided to just treat him. All right, fine. Let's find some ointment then. I'll help you put it on. Prinz, though reluctant, was touched. Little Elette, this is the first time you've called me brother. He was the Duke's tutoring companion, subjected to daily beatings by the Duke's son. Yet, he adored his little sister. Unfortunately, she had always disdained him, refusing to call him brother. Today, hearing her call him brother brought tears to his eyes. Elette, this is the first time you've called me. That's since you were 2.5. Elette, upon hearing this, could only offer the truth. Unsure what to say about the original Elette's precociousness, she added, kitchen work is really tiring, you know. Thankfully, Prinz changed the subject. Wiping sweat from her brow, Elette replied, oh, yes. The kitchen is so tiring. That's why I've suddenly become so mature. I'll definitely call you brother properly from now on. Just forget about what happened before, okay? Prinz beamed. Really? You promise? He then blushed, feeling like his previous sister had been an imposter. He immediately resolved to cherish his new, improved sister. Elette, relieved at successfully deceiving him, felt less apprehensive. After all, she was the imposter. Little ones, come have some tea once you're finished with the dishes. A smiling young woman poked her head in. Both children answered in unison. Okay, let's finish washing these dishes and go have some snacks. All right, just as they finished speaking, Nay appeared, a smug look on her face. Elette, looks like you've become a dishwasher. How pathetic. Washing dishes every day will turn you into an old hag. All I have to do is serve tea to the lady. Hearing Nay's taunts, Elette felt a surge of irritation. Well, aren't you special? Ding dong. Thanks to Elette's diligent practice, she had gloriously become a level 2 technician, unlocking more cooking skills. Seeing the newly acquired culinary arts, she immediately thought of how to deal with this little green tea. Well, it's true. This kind of rough work suits you too. Hey, I'm talking to you. What are you doing? Before Nay could finish, Elette abruptly stood up and delivered a swift headbutt to her chin. Ouch, didn't expect your head to be so hard. You're the hard one. Nay, furious, prepared to retaliate. You two little brats. I'll beat you black and blue. Just then, Nay's supervisor called out to her. Nay, stop that nonsense. You're supposed to be attending to the lady. Goodness, how can you be so foolish? Have you even measured the tea yet? Seeing that it was Isabel, Nay stammered, unsure what to say. Elette, seeing her opportunity, dashed over. Head chef, can I make today's tea and snacks? I want to make some tea for all the hardworking ladies, so they can relax. The head chef, seeing this, agreed. As the hot water flowed, Elette's movements were fluid and practiced, astonishing the nearby maids. Everything's ready, ladies. Seeing the exquisite tea and snacks Elette had prepared, the kitchen erupted in excited chatter. After taking a sip of Elette's tea, one of the maids exclaimed, "Wow, this tea is amazing." Isabel, observing everyone's reaction, immediately expressed her desire to try some. "Don't mind if I do." As Elette offered her a cup, Isabel, no longer bothering with pretense, took the cup and drank. She froze, stunned. Well, you've certainly done it now. The 3-year-old prodigy was on a roll. Not only could she make stir-fried watermelon rind, but she could also brew a mean cup of green tea. That day, after drinking Elette's tea, Isabel roared in fury. "Hey, are you really that dense?" The sudden question left Elette dumbfounded. After all, the young lady had just praised her tea profusely. "Isabel, what are you doing? She's just a child. Drink your tea and stop acting crazy." Pessa, the head chef, protectively pulled Elette behind her. "I'm not crazy. I'm perfectly lucid. Pessa, I just don't understand. With her talent, why should she be a chef? She should be studying inspection with me." Seeing that Isabel didn't seem to mean any harm, Elette thought she really needed medication. Why frighten her like that? What are you trying to do? Isn't Nay enough for you? Now you want to steal my child? Isabel immediately played the rogue, mocking Nay as utterly insignificant. Nay stood there, looking utterly foolish. Unfazed, Isabel invited Elette to start learning tea-making with her the very next day. The head chef immediately retorted, telling Isabel not to poach her apprentice. After all, Elette was her student, and she was determined to train her into a great chef. Seeing the two about to clash over her, Elette was bewildered and didn't know what to say. Are you saying I should learn from both of you? Then please take care of me." She then shot a sly look at the crestfallen Nay. They didn't dare breathe. Her face was a picture of stunned silence. A click echoed. The hard-working Elette returned home. "Brother, I'm back. Did you find the ointment?" But Prinz looked awkward. "What do I do? There's nothing in father's bag." Elette was shocked that her diligent father didn't even have any ointment. The head maid often steals it, saying it's to support her willow flower. Elette was astonished. "What? Didn't you tell the steward?" She didn't know that the steward, the head maid, and the doctor were all in cahoots. Elette thought they were utterly shameless. But Prince's injuries needed immediate treatment. She immediately resorted to the power of money. "Come forth, descendant of the great alchemist." With a system beep, Elette gloriously became an alchemy apprentice. Full of confidence, she prepared to treat her dear brother's injuries. But she suddenly discovered that the skills she'd learned were all for making beauty potions. She froze. But then she had a thought. Making cosmetics and soap would work too. After all, she believed that with her exceptional talent, she could level up quickly. With that in mind, she got to work, asking her brother to help. They toiled away until evening. Their weary father returned home. Opening the door, he saw the messy room and his 2 children asleep on the floor. Assuming they were just tired from playing, he put them to bed. Then a bottle on the table caught his eye. He saw the note his daughter had left him. It was filled with apologies and instructions to give the soap to the servants and the beauty potion to the countess as a gift, since all women loved beauty. The man was stunned. "Did my daughter make this?" Looking at the exquisite bottle, he couldn't resist trying it out. He opened a bottle of the potion and rubbed it on his hand. A wave of non-sticky freshness washed over him. He was captivated, feeling it was no less impressive than Escator tea. He turned abruptly to his sleeping children. "Wow, daughter, you're amazing. Tomorrow, I'll start teaching you metalworking. The gifted child, not yet grown, could cook and brew tea with ease. Adults were vying for her attention, simply because she wasn't a native. She had unexpectedly transmigrated into this family. The power of microtransactions was making her increasingly powerful. In her past life, she was a nobody orphaned and constantly scorned by relatives. Here, she not only had a dad in overalls, but a loving older brother too. Then, one night, she dreamt of her parents from her previous life. Tears streamed down her face. "Don't leave me, Daddy." The man held her tight. "Chill. Did you have a bad dream? Don't be scared. Daddy's here." Ilette opened her eyes, confused, and saw her new father before her. "Daddy will stay here with you until you fall asleep." Ilette was speechless. "It's a promise," the man agreed. With that assurance, little Ilette, tears clinging to her lashes, drifted off to sleep. When she woke again, however, she was mortified. After all, as a proper young lady of the 21st century, to have two men holding her hands after she'd uttered such embarrassing words. She wanted the earth to swallow her whole. Humiliated and wide awake, Ilette decided to delve back into the story. She read how the male protagonist arrived at the Duke's estate and was greeted by her grown-up brother, Prinz. To her surprise, Prinz then led the protagonist to his own room. It was at this point that Ilette realized she was just a minor, insignificant character, barely mentioned in the narrative. This realization filled her with dread as she nervously read about the protagonist's tragic fate. Apparently, deep within the Duke's city lay a sealed dungeon. One day, the protagonist ventured there to, supposedly, release something called golden kinkra for the wheat, only to be eliminated by a monster that broke free. Ilette clenched her tiny fists. She had to strive, to become strong, to change her destiny and become Golden Kinkra? That night, she resolved to finish reading the novel. The next day arrived. Lost in the story, she slammed the book shut. She utterly detested such a cruel plot. She wanted to force-feed the author a few buckets of pig brains to improve his writing. Determined to change her fate, she immediately summoned the system. "I choose healing," she declared. The system promptly responded with a ding. "You have chosen the legendary leftover soul. Based on your chosen profession, your corresponding ability will awaken. Divine power awakening." Just as Ilette, brimming with energy, prepared for her divine baptism, the system declared, ding. Awakening conditions not met. Unable to awaken divine power. Ilette nearly collapsed. Ding. Please complete the prerequisite task. Ilette was astonished. She had paid for this. How could there be prerequisites? Grumbling, she went to the chapel to clean. Ugh, so much dust. I'll have to clean this place properly from now on, she muttered, then glanced up at the floating task prompt. As the task details shimmered before her, she felt utterly foolish. Cheap things really were useless. She had to clean for 1,000 days? 2.5 hours of singing and dancing practice every day was already enough torture. But, determined to complete the task, Ilette clasped her hands together with a swish. "I shall begin my heartfelt prayer," she declared. After a moment of silence, however, she faltered. How do I pray again? 3-year-old cheats. Microtransactions for power. When Ilette learned of her impending doom, she immediately demanded cheats from the system. But the system was a scam, asking her to pay 648. If she didn't, she had to pray 1,000 times in the chapel for the gods to bless her. Faced with the task of sincere prayer, Ilette was lost. Oh my, how do I do this? She hadn't prayed in her previous life. Slumping dejectedly in a chair, she suddenly remembered the strange dog-like creature she'd encountered after her death. Clasping her hands, she blurted, "Oh, gods of the Transmigration Management Bureau, please grant me power." As soon as these ridiculously Chinibu words left her lips, a ding echoed. Morning prayer complete, 5%. Ilette beamed, finally understanding what to do. After a litany of complaints, another bing signaled the completion of the day's task. A holy light descended from the heavens, and the system's voice resounded. On the continent of Terra, from a spirit of creation, arose the flame spirit. His life. Ilette froze, giving a thumbs up. After all, she was the first 3-year-old to found religion. Though she heard numerous complaints from other systems, relying on the flame spirit, she clenched her fists, determined to be a devout follower. Meanwhile, back at the Duke's estate, the Duchess was using the skin toner Ilette had made. Sandra felt utterly fabulous. Beside her, Bianca interrupted her mother. "You seem preoccupied with your skincare routine. You haven't been listening to a word I've said. Sandra's face flushed with embarrassment. Oh, nonsense, darling daughter. Where were we? I was discussing the future prosperity of the Gillette family. We're renowned swordsmen, but since grandfather passed, there's no one of consequence left. If my foolish brother inherits, our decline is inevitable. Bianca's outspoken words deepened Sandra's embarrassment. The idea that her 5-year-old daughter harbored such thoughts was unsettling. Madam, miss, the refreshments are ready. Thankfully, Isabel's arrival with their treats spared Sandra further awkwardness. Bianca, about to continue her pronouncements, suddenly stopped. Her eyes fell on the tea on the table, a peculiar sight. After all, who garnished tea with what looked like a miniature garden? This is a fruit tea made by Roderick's daughter, Elette. She has an incredible talent for these things. I plan to take her under my wing. Sandra spoke with unconcealed admiration. She had just used the skincare product gifted by Alette's father and felt utterly rejuvenated. Have the kitchen send her more pastries, she instructed. This piqued Bianca's interest. She decided to meet this alchemist's daughter. Where is she now? She inquired. Meanwhile, oblivious to all this, Alette was busy harvesting tomatoes. She admired the plump, ripe tomatoes with a sense of accomplishment. Just as she was about to gather her full harvest, her basket was snatched away. Alette froze. She stared at the haughty-faced boy. Prince's sister. What are you looking at? Alette stood dumbfounded, recognizing the notorious brat from the Earl's estate. Before she could claim her basket, the boy, ignoring her completely, began pelting the nearby servants with the tomatoes. He cackled with delight, a picture of childish cruelty. Soon, the basket was empty. Hey, Prince's sister, pick me some more tomatoes. The boy, it seemed, was living a charmed life. Not only could he become stronger just by spending money, but the gods themselves seemed to favor him. One day, Ella was picking melons in the small garden when her basket was snatched by the same arrogant boy. Prince's sister, what are you looking at? Without waiting for a response, the young tyrant began hurling the melons at the working servants. He shrieked with laughter, the picture of gleeful malice. In moments, the basket was empty. Hey, Prince's sister, give me more melons. Elette, having no choice, obeyed. But inwardly, she seethed at his wasteful behavior. Just as the boy was about to invite her to join his game, he noticed the melon in his hand was rotten, crawling with tiny, adorable maggots. He recoiled in disgust, ready to run to his mother. Oh, I'm so sorry, young master. I was in such a hurry to pick the melons, I accidentally grabbed a bad one. Elette's voice was apologetic, though inside, she felt no remorse for his wasted food. She grabbed a cloth and began wiping the boy's hands. There, all clean. Now, shall we continue our melon tossing game? Before she could finish, the boy fled, muttering threats and ordering Elette not to tell anyone what had happened, lest she face his wrath. Elette, speechless, could only stare after him. As she turned to return to the kitchen to practice her watermelon rind stir-fry, a furious voice stopped her. Hey, Elette Roderick, I saw everything. You even touched the young master's hand. It was Nay, her face a mask of rage. Oh, Nay, don't tell me you came running all this way just to pick a fight. Don't play coy. Nay, consumed by fury, ignored Alette's question. She grabbed Alette's arm. How dare you try to get close to the young master? You're not worthy. Elette, sweating nervously, was taken aback. Nay's taste in boys was truly appalling. Seeing Alette's silence, Nay tugged on Elette, shaking her roughly. Sorry, Nay, Elette retorted. So, you're saying you're trying to snag the young master, and I shouldn't get in your way, right? Hearing Alette's orderly response, Nay immediately looked at her with a foolish grin. This idiot actually understood what she was saying today. Little did she know the Duchess and Bianca had already overheard their conversation. Elette suddenly knew just how to deal with her. But Nay, isn't this a bit presumptuous of you? After all, the young master is a nobleman, and you're just well. Elette trailed off, the unspoken word hanging in the air. Nay, already intoxicated by her own infatuation, didn't seem to care about the difference in their social standing. After all, she declared, the Duchess was a commoner too. The potion's emboldening effects were clearly at work. Hearing this, the Duchess froze. Is that so? Who told you that? Nay, completely oblivious, loudly proclaimed, my mom said so. Just as she finished her triumphant declaration, a voice from behind made her blood run cold. Is that so? So that's how you see me. Seeing that the speaker was the Duchess, Nay's face was a mask of shock. She stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. The Duchess, meanwhile, was seething with rage. Call the guards, she roared. throw Nay and her mother out of this house. With the arrival of the guards, Nay made her ignominious exit. Aylette clenched her small fists, a triumphant grin spreading across her face. The Duchess was still fuming, but Bianca quickly stepped in to comfort her. "Mother, you shouldn't pay them any mind. Think of it this way," Bianca continued. "We've just rid the house of some unpleasantness." Her gaze then shifted to Aylette, who nervously reached up to pat her hair, preparing to escape the scene. But Bianca stopped her. "Mother," she said, "I wanted to be close to her." The girl, transported from the 21st century into the body of a 3-year-old, found herself facing the affections of the haughty young lady. "Mother, can she be my playmate?" Being Bianca's playmate, however, wasn't a desirable position. Her previous playmates hadn't lasted more than 3 days before fleeing in tears. Consequently, Bianca had developed a rather dreadful reputation. Anyone asked to be her playmate would burst into tears and threaten suicide. Rumors began to circulate, questioning the aloof young lady's sanity. Having no choice, Aylette, after tidying up, went to the young lady's room. Sweating nervously, she looked at Bianca. "Hello, Mississippi." Seeing Aylette arrive, Bianca's face lit up. "Welcome, Aylette." She then picked up a forgotten book and placed it on the table. "All right, now, just pick any book you want to read." Aylette was surprised, not daring to disobey. She approached the bookshelf, but the titles left her speechless. After all, what 10-year-old girl read such advanced material? Seeing Bianca's focused expression, Aylette resigned herself to the situation. "This book looks interesting," she murmured. The title on the book cover read, "Eternal Membrane." Aylette was taken aback. Seeing that Aylette had chosen a book, Bianca told her to make herself comfortable and not to worry about her. Aylette, taking her at her word, sprawled on the sofa, only to realize she couldn't understand a word. She went back to the bookshelf, intending to find something simpler. "Why are you choosing the Bible?" Bianca asked, bewildered. "Because if I don't understand the Bible," Aylette replied, "I won't be able to understand this world's culture." Bianca stared, dumbfounded, thinking Aylette truly was extraordinary. Little did she know, Aylette simply wanted to decipher the eternal membrane she'd just picked. Without understanding the cultural context, the book was incomprehensible. Bianca was impressed by Aylette's insightful approach to learning. Wanting to test Aylette further, she interrupted her reading. "Let's play with dolls." Aylette was taken aback by the request. "Well, we've been reading for 2.5 days, Bianca explained, "so I want to do something else. What do you think?" Knowing she couldn't refuse, Aylette agreed with a smile. After all, having grown up watching Teletubbies, child's play like this was easy. When Bianca brought out her dolls, Aylette, like a child from the countryside, stared at the exquisite toys in awe. "I'll assign the roles," Bianca declared, picking up a female doll and a teddy bear. "I'll be the Duchess and the Maid, and you can be the unfaithful Duke, with a young and cunning mistress." Aylette stood there, utterly dumbfounded. Something felt off about this whole setup. Suddenly, a dramatic "ha" rang out. "Finally, I've found you. You home-wrecking hussy. I'm going to deal with you today." This was Bianca's final test. This peculiar and frankly unsettling hobby of hers had scared off all her previous playmates. She had even resisted Bianca's attempts to see them off when they left. This had left Bianca feeling defeated and apprehensive. She worried that Aylette, like her other friends, would be frightened away. So, it wasn't until 2.5 days later that she brought out her dolls. Little did she know, Aylette wasn't scared at all. In fact, she picked up a doll with an enthusiastic gleam in her eyes. "I've been wrongly accused, madam. I just arrived. It was the Duke who seduced innocent little me. Besides, there's nothing between us." The Duke doesn't even have a..." Aylette trailed off, using a euphemism she'd picked up from another world. Bianca was stunned into silence, utterly speechless. Aylette, whose mind was filled with internet memes from her past life, continued her outrageous performance. "So, madam, he doesn't even have a, I'm the victim here. I was tricked." The haughty young lady had always been a solitary child. Unexpectedly, Aylette's arrival had piqued her interest. That day, when Aylette came to her house, the young lady asked her to play dolls. Surprised, Aylette had no choice but to comply. She and Bianca began to act out a scene of a duke seducing his mistress, only to be caught red-handed by his wife. Suddenly, Ilette blurted out, "Madam, I've been wrongly accused. The Duke doesn't even have it. How could we even do anything?" Ilette, unfazed by the scandalous implications of her words, continued her performance. "How could we even play around? He doesn't have the necessary equipment." Bianca was momentarily stunned into silence. By the time she recovered, Ilette had already finished the scene, looking at her with a bright smile. "Madam, the Duke has fainted. Are you satisfied?" At that moment, Bianca finally snapped out of her daze and grabbed Ilette's hand. "You're amazing. Can you stay with me from now on?" Ilette froze, her lips twitching, unsure of what to say. "You can call me Bianca from now on, when it's just the two of us. You don't have to be so formal." Ilette was surprised, but agreed. After all, winning over the young mistress's favor could only be beneficial. A few days later, after finishing her daily prayers, Ilette went to find Bianca. Bianca was waiting for her, a beaming smile on her face. She invited Ilette to the library to find a certain book, one that explained how it is made. Ilette, a connoisseur of such internet lore, readily agreed, her face lighting up with excitement. They walked to the library together. Looking at the enormous building, Ilette gasped, "Wow, it's so big." Bianca, puffing out her chest with pride, told her to stop dawdling and help her find the book. Just then, Bianca froze. The vast library suddenly seemed eerily ominous. "What's wrong, Bianca?" "Nothing. Let's just get the book and leave quickly." Bianca felt a growing unease, but she stepped into the silent library. Ilette followed close behind. "Found it. This is it." Bianca held a dark red book and pulled it from the shelf. "Bianca, something feels wrong. Is the library always this creepy?" Bianca didn't answer. A strange light flickered in the space where the book had been. A black crack appeared out of thin air, as if trying to pull Bianca in. An unsettling sound echoed through the air. With a whoosh, Ilette grabbed Bianca's hand, and both of them vanished from the silent library. A cough broke the silence. Bianca stirred and shakily got to her feet. Before she could speak, Ilette gasped, staring ahead. Before them lay a desolate graveyard. Bianca trembled, wanting to go home. We were just in the library. What happened?" Little Ilette, her face slick with cold sweat, realized where they were. The system notification bar above them displayed the grim news. They had entered a level 1 dungeon, the cemetery buried beneath Count Gillette City. "We're doomed," Ilette thought, recalling the novel's plot. She knew this was the day the original character met her demise, but she hadn't expected Bianca to be dragged into this dangerous place with her. That explained why Bianca wasn't mentioned in the original storyline. Bianca, now also aware of their predicament, was at a loss. They could only leave this perilous dungeon by defeating its master, but they were just children, utterly powerless. Ilette immediately resolved to protect her. She called out to the system, bewildered. Why has the dungeon difficulty become this? Shouldn't it be safe during the newbie protection period? The system was stumped, unable to answer. Ilette's face contorted with indignation. "I trusted you. You're trying to kill me, a newbie? Are you even human?" Tears streamed down her face, shocked by this betrayal. The deity protecting Ilette was equally speechless. Outwitted, Ilette could only pray for divine intervention. "Please adjust the dungeon's difficulty, or at least give me super strength," she pleaded. As the deity pondered, a rumbling echoed from the distance. Skeletons clawed their way out of graves, encircling Ilette and Bianca. The sudden appearance of the skeletons terrified Bianca. Ilette, desperate, again implored the deity for help. With a celestial ding-dong, the Genesis flame spirit prepared to bestow a new skill. Ilette eagerly checked the skill details. "This is awesome." The lilies of Count Murat's city were about to bloom. Ilette and Bianca, searching the library for clues, were suddenly engulfed in an eerie light. It transported them to the skeletal grounds beneath the city. Sensing the imminent danger, Ilette frantically prayed to the Genesis flame spirit for protection. Seeing its favored follower on the verge of death, the spirit swiftly granted her a new skill. "Wow, this is insane." Meanwhile, the skeletons continued their advance. Ilette grabbed Bianca's hand. "Don't be afraid, Bianca. I'll protect you." Tears welled in Bianca's eyes as she clung to Ilette. "I'll protect you too, Ilette. I mean it." She insisted she wasn't just talking. A chilling voice echoed through the graveyard. The dungeon's master had arrived. "Greetings, adventurers." Aldacia, ranked 9,438th in the demon realm, stood before them. Well, he sneered. "Two little children. Are you here to be my next meal?" Bianca's brow furrowed at the mention of being eaten. Facing the terrifying Aldacia, she stepped in front of Alette, ready to negotiate. "What will it take to let us go?" she asked. "I'll give you a 648 package." "Ooh, 648? I accept your offer," Aldacia replied, "but you have to leave the little girl behind." Bianca refused. Alette was hers to protect. "No way. She's mine. It's not happening. I'll give you two 648 packages. Just let us both leave," Bianca pleaded. Unbeknownst to her, Aldacia, despite his name, wasn't foolish. He let out a wicked laugh and gave Bianca a choice. Choose one or both would be devoured. Alette, tired of the villain's taunts, lunged forward to attack, but Bianca pulled her back. "Alette, don't. I'll stay here," Bianca declared. "As the head of the family, I have to protect you. And you're not just some insignificant maid, Alette. You're my friend." Alette froze. Bianca's voice trembled. "Alette, you're smart. You know what to do. I'll be here, waiting for you to come back with help." Alette turned and ran. "Bianca, thank you for saying those things. But you don't have to do this. Didn't I say we'd be all right? Don't worry." Alette's face was calm. With a swish, she turned around. She abruptly raised her arm in a protective gesture. A golden light flashed. "Balala the fairies, transform. Yukala, transform." With a cry, Balala the fairies finally began their righteous mission. Balala the fairies, with a single call, will make the most beautiful dreams come true. With the power of love, my magic will conquer the darkness and sorrow. Only then can we grow. Upbeat music suddenly began to play. Aldacia was instantly terrified. "Impossible. You can use holy power? Haven't the gods vanished for centuries? It seems you don't know yet. There's already a divine successor." Alette prepared to use her abilities to destroy him, but a keyboard suddenly appeared. Alette was dumbfounded. "Well, talk about a surprise." Seeing Alette frozen, Aldacia quickly formed a Rasengan, preparing to take her down. "Strike while the iron is hot. You dare hesitate." He pushed his power, the Rasengan growing larger. At the same time, the search was complete. Alette snapped back to reality. Rikarudo, Arigato, Prepara tutti, BZZT. Synchronization with the Vice God is too low. This skill cannot be used. Alette was stunned. What? Aldacia had finished charging. He launched the Rasengan. "Die, little girl," Bianca cried out, urging Alette to react. Alette, finally reacting, saw Guardian Shield on the display. Without time to think, she quickly deployed it, blocking Aldacia's attack. Then, in one go, she prepared to finish him. "God of hostages, grant me strength." A transmigrated girl with magic can not only easily crush scum, but also dominate. The gods also favor her. A rich young lady even wants to engage in Yuri with her. Unexpectedly, one day, she and Bianca accidentally crossed over to Aldacia's home. To avoid being beaten, Alette transformed into the divine maiden. Omniscient God, darkness envelopes all things. I'm the last dawn light in the darkness. I have arrived. With a flash of lightning, Aldacia screamed, wanting to escape. Thinking he was dead, Alette approached to see what he had dropped. But Aldacia was still alive. "You're so weak, and you're not dead yet. Please, have mercy and spare me." Alette stroked her chin, contemplating Aldacia's plea. "All right, since you want to live," she touched his body. "Then I'll heal you." Aldacia instantly broke out in a cold sweat, begging Alette not to cast the spell. But it was too late. A golden light flashed, and Aldacia vanished. "Oomph, you just tried to take me down. Did you think I'd let you off?" Just as Alette finished off Aldacia, the system finally chimed in. Alette has defeated Aldacia, ranked 9,438. Holy light appeared in the sky, drifting down to the earth. Just then, Alette gasped, noticing something on the ground. This must be the reward for defeating the boss. Alette picked it up, dumbfounded, unsure what to do with it. "Bianca!" Alette's sudden shout made Bianca turn around with a smile. Alette was about to share the good news, but Bianca grabbed her arm. "Wow, you're so amazing. You're a divine messenger. At your age, to possess such divine power. That's incredible." Faced with Bianca's astonishment, Alette didn't know how to respond. But as the first believer of the creator Yenling, she was indeed considered a divine messenger. She could only awkwardly reply, something like that. Bianca tightened her grip, her face full of admiration. "I see. So the gods haven't abandoned us after all." As Bianca was lost in thought, a series of system notifications suddenly appeared, leaving the already bewildered Alette even more confused. After all, this evangelizing is truly childish. Relying on imagination to develop followers? Isn't that just a pyramid scheme? Lost in thought, he suddenly jolted, and with a thud, he collapsed onto the ground. Bianca immediately panicked. No, Aylette, you can't be dead. At this moment, the system helpfully chimed in, indicating that she had overused her divine power, resulting in a mental breakdown and the need for rest. Aylette was utterly speechless. There truly is no such thing as a free lunch. Otherwise, sooner or later, everything will fall apart. So, creating this isn't easy. Everyone, give me some motivation. Bianca was still crying. Aylette, you can't die. We finally became friends. We haven't even had a single conversation about love yet. Bianca, I won't die, Aylette said, now only wanting to rest. After a couple of words, she fell into a deep sleep. Suddenly, a roar echoed through the heavens and earth. Far away, in the sacred prayer grounds, the people of the holy temple were astonished by the sudden appearance of divine energy. Excitedly, they declared that the gods hadn't abandoned them, chattering amongst themselves as they prepared to head towards the location of the divine descent. At this time, the level 12 male protagonist also learned of the news and arrived at the prayer grounds at a loss for words. Seeing him arrive, the bystanders, Person A and Person B, mocked him with sinister expressions. After all, the protagonist had previously enjoyed the exclusive favor of the gods, but now a new divine history had suddenly appeared. They asked him if he was jealous, but the protagonist appeared indifferent, stating that jealousy would only hinder his training. He considered their taunts foolish. Faced with the protagonist's insults, Person B was about to demonstrate his strength, but Person A stopped him, urging him not to be impulsive. After all, they still needed to rely on his divine power. Hearing this, Person B no longer wanted to bother with him and turned away, cursing under his breath as he left the prayer grounds. Behind him, the protagonist stood with a depressed expression, touching his hand, forcing himself to appear composed as he looked at the shimmering divine power within the holy temple. Who are you? A gifted child with explosive luck. Acting cute and coquettish can make one powerful, but the price of transformation is a bit steep. Looking haggard, feeling like she's about to die. With a thud, she lies down again. At this moment, Aylette felt like she had pulled an all-nighter playing Plants vs. Zombies for 10 straight days. But she was still relieved that she hadn't fainted, vowing to work hard and create new glories. Just then, the sound of the door opening caught her attention. You're awake. Bianca, with a worried look on her face, watched Aylette wake up and hurried over. That's great. Is your body all right? Yes, I'm fine now. Don't worry about me. Faced with Bianca's concern, Aylette felt a warmth spread through her heart, making her realize that this world wasn't just words printed on thin paper. Here, she had the care of her only friend, the love of her teachers, and, more importantly, a happy home. I didn't tell anyone about the dungeon. Just then, Bianca interrupted her thoughts. I didn't want the appearance of the dungeon and the divine descent to disturb Aylette. Hearing this, Aylette felt a surge of approval for her actions. So, with such powerful strength, will you join a dungeon raiding group in the future? Aylette's face immediately fell, a look of worry appearing. She felt truly miserable. Isoposizo. Then I'll help you too. Although I can't fight, I can handle the logistics for you. Listening to Bianca's sincere words, Aylette was speechless at her dedication and immediately embraced Bianca in a grateful hug. Thank you. She tightened her arms, not wanting to let go. After a moment of affectionate embrace, the two began discussing how to exit the dungeon. Under normal circumstances, after the boss is defeated, the dungeon's difficulty decreases significantly, allowing adventurers to enter and gather resources. But another method is to close it. Aylette fell into deep thought, considering closing the dungeon. After all, it was desolate inside, a place even dogs wouldn't go. Just then, Bianca mentioned that they were able to escape safely thanks to audacious skeletal minions. Aylette was instantly bewildered. Bianca then explained the reason. I was lucky at the time. A skeleton that hadn't yet died was quietly approaching me. I immediately threatened them, saying they could either help carry you out or they would meet the same fate as their neighbors, their souls returning to the heavens. Aylette was rendered speechless. However, Bianca's words reminded her of something. She immediately rummaged under the bed and found, with Aylette's delighted exclamation, he held a book reverently in both hands. The Book of Evil Spirits, infamous throughout the underworld. This was his newly acquired skill, capable of instilling terror in the hearts of the undead. His eyes lit up with excitement. He abruptly stood. Let's go. Bianca, utterly bewildered by Aylette's sudden enthusiasm, asked where they were going. Aylette, a mischievous grin spreading across her face, replied, Come on, we're going to get rich. With a whoosh, Illet arrived at her domain. She surveyed the skeletal minions below with a cunning glint in her eyes. Her powerful aura made them tremble, unsure how to escape her gaze. Bianca, meanwhile, remained clueless as to how they were going to make any money or what Illet planned to do. "Look at this vast land," Illet declared, "and all these laborers, obedient out of fear. Isn't this the perfect opportunity to get rich?" With that, she unleashed her supernatural power. "All right, boys, time to farm," she commanded. The barren land stretched before them. A prince had once dreamed of transforming this wasteland into a vibrant paradise, but the powerful evil spirits had shattered his dream. He became one of Aldatia's skeletal minions, wreaking havoc for years. Finally, the tide turned. He thought his days of misery were over. But this whimsical girl had other plans. She put them to work farming for her. The prince's dream, however twisted, was finally realized. With the skeleton's help, Illet wasted no time. Grabbing a shovel, she joined them in tilling the soil. Across the desolate landscape, they dug holes, filled them with dirt, and counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Their own soil, their own land. The skeletons longed to give up. They thought that with Aldatia gone, they would finally find peace. But now they had Illet, a different kind of tyrant. But the skeletal prince, his dream fulfilled, worked with surprising zeal. He urged his fellow minions on. "Don't slack off if you want to live. Who knows what this Illet is capable of? Maybe one day she'll finally let us rest in peace." But the weary skeletons had no desire to farm and naturally started to slack off. Unfortunately, this caught Illet's attention. "Hey, you lot, what do you think you're doing?" "I heard every word." The skeletons jumped, startled, and frantically returned to their work. As the sun began to set, Illet, exhausted from the day's labor, prepared to rest. In a sudden act of generosity, she summoned a nearby skeletal minion. "Go dig 7 graves over there," she instructed. The skeletons exchanged furtive glances, assuming that 7 more tyrants had perished. Illet's roar silenced their whispers. The skeletons stood at attention, terrified. "I see you all rest in graves, don't you? There's 7 of you. Shouldn't there be 7 graves? Or are you 7 gourds, 7 children, 7 brothers, 1 family, needing only 1 grave?" The skeletons, hearing about their own graves, were overjoyed. Before, the skeletal population had been so overcrowded that they had to share graves, 15 or more crammed into one. Every morning, they had to check if any of their bones were missing. As they reveled in the prospect of having their own graves, Illet added another enticing offer. "If you work hard," she promised, "I'll give you each a tombstone with your name engraved on it, and I'll cover them with beautiful flowers. After all, you were once human, weren't you?" The thought of flowers and personalized tombstones stunned the skeletons. These were things they had yearned for since their deaths. They now saw Illet not as a tyrant, but as a saintly warrior come to deliver them. Overcome with gratitude, they approached Illet with the utmost reverence. Before she could react, they lifted her onto their shoulders. They tossed her high into the air, silhouetted against the setting sun. Bianca watched Illet and the skeletal minions with a warm smile. Time passed, day after day. Illet and Bianca returned to their secret domain. Time flowed differently within the dungeon. A week inside was equivalent to 3 weeks outside. Illet and Bianca were delighted by this accelerated growth cycle. The shorter harvest periods were a boon to their enterprise. Illet's attention was drawn back with a gasp of wonder. The once barren land was now covered in lush green grass, swaying invitingly in the breeze. A cool, clear river flowed merrily into the distance. "Wow, it's beautiful," she exclaimed. The girl's charisma was so potent that the skeletons were all vying for her favor. That day, Illet and Bianca came to inspect the land, only to find the once barren expanse now teeming with life. Lush green grass swayed invitingly, and a cool, clear river babbled on its way to the distant horizon. Illet's face lit up with delight. "Wow, it's beautiful." The skeletal minions, seeing Illet approaching for inspection, startled. They clattered towards her, and with a sudden flourish, a withered flower appeared in one skeleton's hand. It seemed eager to show Illet the fruits of their labor. "You've already harvested something so quickly?" Illet exclaimed, surprised. The skeletons continued their eager offerings, vying to be the first to have their tombstones inscribed. A basket, overflowing and nearly obscuring her small frame, Elette struggled to reach Bianca's side, praising the skeleton's diligence. Bianca, equally delighted, wondered how Elette would carry everything back. A merchant always has a trick up her sleeve. Elette winked, opening a satchel. A flash of light, and the overflowing bounty vanished. Bianca clapped, still puzzled by what sort of magic Elette had employed. The bag, Elette explained, was the one Aldacia had given her. With 50 square meters of dimensional space, it could hold thousands of, well, anything really. I'm going to take all of this back and make potions, Elette declared, eager to return. Bianca then presented the business plan she'd been developing, outlining their joint venture. Elette, impressed with Bianca's competence, carefully reviewed the document. Just as she was fantasizing about her impending wealth, the system interrupted her thoughts. An update was imminent. Elette waved to Bianca, indicating she needed to inspect the farm. Moving aside, she quickly brought up the update log, eager to see what improvements were coming. As she scrolled through the list, something caught her eye. The shop now offered an item that could change a transmigrator's genre. Elette's eyes widened, but the exorbitant price of 10 billion, coupled with the random nature of the genre change, froze her in place. It felt like a cruel joke for someone as broke as her. But wait, there was also a growth together package that seemed more promising. She looked around for a suitable binding target, but Bianca didn't seem to possess the necessary qualities. Just then, a large skeletal face loomed into view, startling Elette. "Whoa, you scared me. What's this?" "For me to drink." It was the skeleton prince, offering her a cup of floral tea. Elette, initially intending to thank him, simply stared. A pink icon hovered above the prince's head. The system chimed in, indicating the skeleton's exceptional farming abilities. With proper nurturing, he could become a druid? Elette, surprised that the system could be used on monsters, felt her ahogue stand on end. The system then prompted her. Did she want to use the 300 trillion ability? Though still stunned, Elette didn't hesitate to confirm. A bolt of lightning flashed. The skeleton prince jolted, and Elette knew the upgrade was complete. "You know what to do now, right?" The prince, starry-eyed, cupped his skeletal face and tapped his skull helplessly. Elette had no regrets. The prince's demonstrated abilities had earned her trust. Bianca, too, was impressed by the skeleton's newfound work ethic. He used to be quite the slacker. Now, the skeleton prince wielded a shovel with enthusiastic vigor, seemingly enjoying the hard labor. He was the epitome of a dedicated worker. Hoping to find more promising individuals, Elette spent her days perched by the window, observing the crowds below. Everyone seemed lackluster. Just as disappointment began to set in, she noticed someone inside the house with untapped potential. It was her brother, Prinz. Elette's eyes widened further. She pressed against the window pane, observing her gloomy brother. After careful scrutiny, Elette, astonished by his potential, flung open the door. He was about to call out to his brother, Prinz, when a foot slammed into his body. He went flying. The young lord, clearly delighted, sneered, "Gulingtsi, get up. I'm not finished with you yet." He raised his stick, preparing to strike again. Elette, witnessing this in a panic, froze. What was happening? This was the Earl's study companion, whose daily task seemed to be enduring the young lord's beatings. Today, his younger sister had come looking for him, only to see the young lord kick him across the room. The young lord, his face alight with glee, prepared to continue his assault. Seeing this, Elette ran forward, her small body shielding the fallen prince. The young lord recognized the newcomer and scowled. "Bianca," he snapped, gesturing for Elette to stop interfering with their practice. But Elette's gaze was firm. "Practice?" she questioned boldly. "With our status difference, how can this be considered practice?" Her eyes then locked onto her brother's. "Isn't this just one-sided bullying?" Elette's defiance piqued the young lord's interest. With a cruel smirk, he invited her to join the practice. Prinz, hearing this, struggled to his feet, weakly positioning himself in front of Elette, determined to protect his sister. His eyes were cold as he stared down the young lord. This only further enraged the bully, who raised his stick to strike. A furious shout stopped him. "Brother, you're being utterly ridiculous." It was Bianca, her face flushed with anger. She strode to Elette's side, glaring at her brother. "How long are you going to act like a child?" The young lord, visibly intimidated, stammered, unable to answer. I was practicing swordsmanship, right, teacher?" The swordsmanship instructor, hurrying over, remained silent. Bianca's face darkened, and she unleashed a torrent of reprimands upon the two. The pair stood rigidly, their faces pale with tension. Bianca, losing interest, turned to Alette and instructed her to take Prinz for treatment. Alette expressed her gratitude. As Alette led Prinz away, Bianca declared her intention to inform their mother about the incident. Meanwhile, as herbs rustled and fell, the harvest in the dungeon was being prepared for transport. Alette, I'm sorry. Are you angry? Prinz asked nervously, looking at his sister. Alette, exasperated, told him not to talk, explaining that she was preparing herbs for him. Prinz looked on with surprise. Before, Alette only made salves. Now, she was making potions. He asked if she had leveled up, but Alette didn't reply. Green liquid splashed into the container as she recalled her father teaching her alchemy. Just then, a system notification interrupted her thoughts. Her alchemy skill had reached level 8, unlocking new knowledge. Alette showed no surprise. As time passed, the potion finished brewing. She turned, offering the cup. Here, drink this. Prinz immediately thanked her, but hesitated. What's wrong? The potion, it's bitter. That's why I'm hesitating. Alette, exasperated, made to take the potion back, prompting Prinz to quickly gulp it down. Alette looked on with relief, suddenly remembering how her brother in her past life also disliked bitter things, always wanting chocolate or milk-flavored medicine. Lost in thought, Alette stared at the herbs on the table. Then, inspiration struck. She snatched the potion back from Prinz. I'll be right back, she declared, and then began working furiously. Various ingredients were added. With a small pop, a cup of dark, unidentifiable liquid was complete. Here, brother, drink this. Prinz stared at the concoction, which looked deadly at first glance. But knowing it was from his sister, he steeled himself and prepared to drink. He froze, surprised to find it unexpectedly delicious, with a sweet chocolate flavor. Deeply touched, he exclaimed, Alette, you're amazing. But every time I let you see me looking so pathetic, I don't want to let to see me holding my hand like this. It's just embarrassing. Brother, you're very capable, you know. I know that very well. Above Prinz's head, a prompt appeared, indicating his immense potential in swordsmanship. Alette, without hesitation, activated her superpower. She was prepared to give her brother a significant boost, then let brother take his revenge himself. He was just a bullied study companion. But his sister, to make him strong, used a pay-to-win cheat, making him incredibly powerful. With a swift 1-2-3, Prinz knocked the young lord onto his backside. The beaten young lord, crying and wailing, wanted to go home. Prinz stared blankly, bewildered by his own strength. The young lord, however, was far from accepting defeat. He couldn't believe that his former punching bag had just beaten him. He thrashed on the ground, desperate to retaliate against Prinz. Meanwhile, the swordsmanship master clapped enthusiastically. After all, it had been a long time since he'd seen such a promising talent. He stepped forward excitedly, offering Prinz pointers. The young lord, witnessing this scene, seethed with rage. He roared at the swordsmanship master, demanding to know if the lesson wasn't meant for him. The master merely offered a casual dismissal, continuing to instruct the study companion. Jealousy and resentment festered within the young lord. He kicked a wooden sword at his feet. Then, standing there dumbfounded, a sinister thought took root. The very next day, Prinz, under the direction of a random servant, carried some items, pondering his newfound strength over the past few days. He was oblivious to the danger that was about to find him. A figure leaned over the platform above. The young lord, a wicked grin on his face, prepared to strike down the unarmed study companion. With a crash, the young lord, seizing his opportunity, shoved a flower pot over the edge. The pot plummeted towards the unsuspecting Prinz. Prinz, startled, grabbed a shovel in his hands. With a single, sweeping crescent moon slash, he shattered the first flower pot. The young lord, utterly terrified, crouched down. With a whoosh, the second flower pot was flung away. It smashed against the pillar in front of the young lord, who shrieked for his mother. Prinz, however, looked on in astonishment, wondering who had just attacked him. The young lord had already fled, yelling that he wouldn't dare do it again. Hearing the familiar voice, the bewildered Prinz grew even more confused. Alette, witnessing the whole scene, wore a smug expression. After all, this was the cheat she had paid for to power up her brother. Prinz was surprised by his sister's sudden appearance. "What's that in your hand?" he asked. "Oh, this These are potions I made. After last time, I had a burst of inspiration. This one is cilantro flavored. This one is duck neck. This one is chicken feet. And there's even watermelon rind stir-fried with watermelon. And this one is for replenishing your stamina. She popped a dark, round pellet into Prince's mouth. She told him to rest well so he could go to the discrimination academy. Hearing Ilette's words, Prince's heart warmed. He didn't know how to repay her. "Thank you, Ilette," he said. Ilette brushed it off. "What's there to thank me for? These weren't hard to make. Besides, I needed a taste tester. I'm not just talking about the supplements, but also the things you said to me. Thanks to you, I'm slowly becoming stronger. Thank you, Ilette. You're the best sister in the world." Prince's face beamed. Looking at her brother, Ilette froze. When she finally reacted, she blurted out what was in her heart. What's there to thank me for? If you really want to thank me, play dolls with me for 2.5 days. Hearing about playing dolls, Prince was stunned. Ilette felt incredibly awkward. After all, this was something she always used to say to her brother in her past life. Thankfully, someone called for Prince. Ilette, seizing the opportunity, shooed him away, waving her hand and running off. She told him not to take what she'd said to heart. Prince waved back, but he was puzzled. Why did his sister want to play dolls with him? Ilette had always been precocious. Watching his sister disappear, he wondered why he felt a pang of nostalgia. Meanwhile, Ilette dashed down the Earl's mansion corridor. She thought to herself that she couldn't let anyone discover she was a transmigrated soul. After all, in the novel she read, that was a huge taboo. Just as she was about to ask what would happen if her transmigration was discovered by the Creator Flame tomb, Ilette collided head-on with someone. A potion bottle tumbled to the ground. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Are you all right?" As Ilette apologized, the person picked up the potion bottle. "Did you make this potion?" Ilette was startled by the question. "Yes," she replied. "It's very potent and quite unique." An elderly person gazed at her, eyes gleaming with a strange light. Ilette froze, feeling as though she were being seen through. "Your name is Ilette Lodrimer. I know you." Under the old person's gaze, a flicker of unease rose within Ilette. This person was not ordinary. The 3-year-old's luck explodes. Not only did she defy fate and save the child beside her, but she also gave her bullied brother a power-up. That day, while carrying a potion to Bianca, she bumped into a strange old person. The old person's singular gaze frightened Ilette. As the two stood in a stalemate, a voice broke the tension. "Mother, why are you here?" The Countess hurried towards them, Bianca trailing behind her, but hiding her face in fear, too afraid to speak. Ilette was surprised to hear the old person was the Countess's mother. She realized this was Catlia Gillett, who, in the book, was one of the bishops of the Holy Emperor's Hall, to which the male protagonist belonged. She also possessed a special ability. Thankfully, the Countess's arrival spared Ilette further awkwardness. Watching them depart from the floor below, Ilette understood why the old woman had scrutinized her. It felt truly magical to see a character so prominently featured in the novel. She then began to anticipate her first meeting with a male protagonist. She wondered if he would be a breathtakingly handsome, peerlessly invincible young man, lost in her daydreams and chatting with the Creator Flame tomb. A sudden knock startled her. "Ilette, are you in there?" Recognizing Bianca's voice, Ilette rushed to open the door. "Bianca, come in quickly. What brings you here? Shouldn't you be with the Countess?" As Ilette questioned her, Bianca shivered. "It's better if I'm not there." Ilette was surprised by these words. "Because grandmother hates me. It's always been like this. She never talks to me. She doesn't even want to look at me. But she's not a bad person. There must be a reason why grandmother treats me this way." Hearing Bianca's sorrowful words, Ilette didn't know how to comfort her. Looking at Bianca, clearly heartbroken yet still defending her grandmother, Ilette reached out and took her hand. Just as she was about to explain the reason, another urgent knock interrupted her. The door opened and the butler entered. He started to speak, then noticed Bianca and looked surprised. "Miss, you're here too?" Bianca was puzzled by the butler's sudden appearance at Ilette's home. The Countess wishes to see Ilette Lodrimer. Hearing that her grandmother wanted to see Ilette, Bianca froze. She was suddenly afraid, thinking her grandmother, who disliked her, was going to separate her from Ilette, a commoner, because they were friends. They both trembled, unsure how to prevent this tragedy. "I want to go with her too." Hearing Bianca's plea, the butler quickly refused, explaining that the Countess wished to see Ilette alone. At that moment, Ilette smiled and stopped Bianca from saying anything further. "Bianca, it's all right. I have a plan." In the garden, Catlia was already waiting. You've arrived, Alette Lodrimer. Alette cautiously approached. Before she could offer a greeting, Katlia spoke first. Thank you for taking the time to come. I've prepared some refreshments. Please help yourself. Alette stared at the table laden with food, stunned. It was enough to feed her for 2.5 days. Just as Alette sat down, Katlia immediately asked, "Are you close to Bianca?" Her expression turned somber. "What is your relationship with my granddaughter?" Faced with Katlia's directness, Alette didn't hesitate. Beaming, she declared that she and Bianca were the best of friends. She then showered her best friend with effusive praise. Hearing this, Katlia couldn't help but smile. Alette now understood. Katlia doesn't actually dislike Bianca, Alette ventured. "Were you here to see Bianca today?" she added, her tone questioning. "Why would you think that?" Katlia responded, her brow furrowing slightly. Alette's face was serious. "Because you were waiting for news of Bianca's death." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Katlia's expression froze, the blood draining from her face. "What do you mean?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Unseen, Bianca, concealed nearby, had heard every word of their exchange. Katlia's face was grave as she looked at the small child before her. "You're certainly no ordinary child," she stated, her voice low and intense. "Who are you, really?" The weight of her abilities pressed upon Katlia. She possessed eyes that could pierce the veil between life and death, yet she was powerless to prevent the looming tragedy that threatened her granddaughter. Katlia remained silent, choosing to evade the painful truth. Having come to visit her granddaughter that day, she found herself unable to depart. Uncertainty gnawed at her. Summoning Alette, she prepared to confront the unsettling mystery surrounding the child. But Alette, with unnerving perception, saw straight through Katlia's carefully constructed facade. "Were you here to see Bianca today?" she repeated, her voice echoing her earlier question. "Waiting for news of Bianca's death." The bluntness of the accusation struck Katlia dumb. "The reason you remember me," Alette continued, her gaze unwavering, "is because my lifespan was the same as Bianca's, wasn't it? Because I was supposed to die on the same day as her." Katlia, startled, rose abruptly to her feet. "How do you know?" she breathed, her voice laced with disbelief. As Katlia grappled with the implications of Alette's words, the child offered no response. "Now you don't have to ignore Bianca anymore," Alette stated calmly. "Her fate has changed." Her voice sharpened. "I'll ask you again. Who are you?" Poised to reveal her true nature, Alette was interrupted by the system's urgent warning against divulging celestial secrets. The inspector was watching, the system cautioned, forbidding her from revealing any information. Alette, momentarily panicked, fell silent, struggling to find a suitable explanation. "Very well, even if you won't tell me," Katlia conceded. "I can see." Katlia's gaze fell upon the faint, shimmering numerals hovering above Alette's head. The confirmation settled upon her. Alette was a time traveler. "Regardless of who you are," Katlia said, her voice softening, "thank you for changing Bianca's fate." Alette's face broke into a warm smile. "Bianca and I are best friends," she replied. "You don't have to thank me." But Katlia, overwhelmed by a wave of guilt, couldn't shake the weight of her past actions. "Thank you, truly," she repeated, her voice thick with emotion. "Compared to you, I'm so weak and cowardly. I shouldn't have treated my granddaughter that way. I should have loved her with all my heart, instead of ignoring her." The sound of approaching footsteps broke through Katlia's self-recrimination. She turned, startled. "Grandmother?" Bianca stood there, her eyes wide with a mixture of anxiety and hope. Before Katlia could speak, Bianca, having overheard their conversation, rushed forward and embraced her tightly. "It's so wonderful that grandmother doesn't hate me," Bianca exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. "It's truly wonderful." Katlia, overcome with remorse, could only hold her granddaughter close. As the two embraced, Alette sat on the steps, lost in thought. "Alette Lodrimer." Katlia's voice broke through Alette's reverie. She stood up as Katlia reached for her neck. "I owe you a great debt," Katlia said, her expression sincere. "Take this," she offered, holding out a delicate necklace. "It was my friend's. I hope you and Bianca can get along from now on." Alette accepted the gift graciously. "Of course," she replied. "Is there anything else you desire?" Katlia inquired. Anything at all. Don't hesitate to ask. Elet was about to decline when a thought struck her. I have a wish, she declared. I want to go to the Holy Emperor's Hall. This was the key to her departure, the gateway to the next stage of her journey. Catlia smiled. You're certainly honest, she remarked. That's not a difficult request. The Founding Day Festival is coming up soon. We'll go together then. A quest notification flashed before Elet's eyes, confirming Catlia's promise. A surge of excitement coursed through her. Yes, she thought, her fists clenching. I can finally leave this place. Meanwhile, within the hallowed halls of the Holy Emperor's palace, the male protagonist seemed to sense a shift in the currents of fate. He stirred from his slumber, unaware that a blind girl was about to embark on her first journey away from home. Elet's father gave her 1,000 warnings, urging her not to be tricked by bad people outside. Her good friend, Bianca, stood beside her with a worried expression. Bianca asked if Elet was really going to be all right. After all, while they were packing last night, Bianca thought Elet was moving out, even going so far as to entrust her prized 82 scythe to her, as if passing on the guardianship of their home. Elet, immediately embarrassed, explained that she was just trying to create the atmosphere of a grand departure, playing along with the idea. But in her heart, she couldn't help but feel a little afraid. The beginner's protection in Countess City had made survival so easy she hadn't had a thing to fear. But she knew that stepping outside those gates would instantly ramp up the difficulty to hellish levels. But remembering that the male protagonist hadn't yet returned, Elet reasoned that she should be fine. Just then, Bianca interrupted her thoughts, calling over a nearby vendor. Bianca handed her a jianbing guozi, a savory crepe, to take with her on her journey. Elet's face lit up like a flower. Wow, it looks delicious. Thank you, Bianca. But then Bianca leaned in close, whispering, you have to tell me your real age later, okay? Elet, feeling like she was being interrogated again, could only offer a non-committal, next time for sure. Just then, a young man nearby told them to get ready, as they were about to depart. We'll be using spatial transference. Come over here. Obediently, Elet approached. She watched, bewildered, as the young man took out a green gem. With a sharp crack, the gem shattered. A blinding light erupted. As the light and the swirling energy dissipated, Catlia's voice roused Elet, and she opened her eyes, stunned. Gazing at the bustling crowds in the Holy Emperor's Hall, Elet couldn't help but exclaim, there are so many people. Today is Founding Day. Most of the children are here to test their potential, hoping to gain entry into the church. Come with me. With that, Catlia took Elet's hand and led her away. Meanwhile, a man stood with his hands clasped tight, eyes closed, seemingly using some kind of power. Hey, Thexerild, what are you spacing out for in the hallway? A companion asked. Thexerild replied that he was praying for the children. His companion gave him a look of disbelief, clearly not buying it. He was well aware of Thexerild's peculiar habits. Unbeknownst to him, Thexerild was actually praying for the children to fail, so they wouldn't have to enter this place of turmoil. Suddenly, Thexerild's brow furrowed, and he gripped his arm. A vision of righteous pride flashed before his eyes, blood-red words encroaching upon gentle humility. Thexerild remained silent, then looked down, searching. His companion was puzzled, but the imminent daily prayer called them away. The two prepared to leave. Meanwhile, Elet and Catlia arrived at the church's dining hall. Seeing the meager food the glum children were eating, Elet was surprised that such a grand Holy Emperor's Hall could be so impoverished. Just then, a church member came to find Catlia, summoning her to a meeting. Not wanting to be a burden, Elet urged her to go, assuring her she would be fine on her own. Though worried about leaving Elet alone, Catlia knew the meeting was important. She instructed the church member to look after Elet, who readily agreed. However, as soon as Catlia left, the church member dismissed Elet, telling her to go play with the other children and promptly vanishing. Left alone, Elet was speechless at the blatant dismissal. But remembering her purpose at the Holy Emperor's Hall, she began to explore the small garden, searching for what she needed. Following a sudden flash of insight, she found the herb that could cure the plague. Elet quickly harvested it, a triumphant grin spreading across her face. She was going to be rich. Humming a little tune about her impending wealth as she prepared to store the herb, she felt a tap on her shoulder, interrupting her thoughts. Turning around, she was completely taken aback. What are you doing? Thexerild asked, his face calm as he approached. Are you a thief? a small garden filled with large blooms. A young girl, burdened with a quest, excitedly gathers them. Humming a tune, utterly pleased with herself, Elette was startled by a pair of hands. Turning, she saw Thexerild. "What are you doing? Are you a thief?" Both were momentarily stunned. Elette, her face smudged with dirt, was utterly bewildered. She stared at Thexerild's silver hair. He reached out, gently wiping the grime from her face. That damned gentleness, coupled with an impeccably handsome face, sent a wave of infatuation through Elette, who, having a weakness for handsome men, instantly recognized him as the male lead, Thexerild Elzent. The system's untimely reminder snapped her back to reality. A look of utter exasperation crossed her face. Thexerild, looking at his own hands, mistakenly thought his concern had caused Elette distress. "Don't think too much of it. My kindness towards you is purely out of obligation." Elette, already aware of the storyline, was unfazed by his explanation. She knew Thexerild had to maintain a righteous and benevolent persona to preserve his powerful divine abilities. Conversely, embracing wickedness would plunge him into an abyss of hell. Thus, Thexerild was forced to maintain a facade of honesty and kindness, becoming a pushover despite his inherent strength. Aware of this, Elette feigned ignorance in response to his questioning. "I followed the aura of a holy relic. I didn't expect to encounter a child here." Thexerild pointed to the necklace around Elette's neck. "That's the Saintess's relic, and I am one of the heroes chosen for this year's Rebirth Festival." Elette feigned surprise, internally shocked that Catlia would give her such a valuable gift. Thexerild leaned closer. "It's strange. I don't sense any divine power from you. Why do you possess a holy relic?" Elette quickly collected herself, insisting she hadn't stolen it. Catlia had given it to her. Just then, a strange rumbling sound echoed. Both froze. "Are you hungry?" Elette suppressed a giggle, watching Thexerild's embarrassed fidgeting. He stammered, I was just heading to the dining hall. My companions, they're still looking for me." Elette, with a mischievous grin, dismissed his explanation as a normal bodily function, urging him not to worry. "No, eat this. The dining hall food looks awful." She produced the treats given to her by her friend. Flustered by Elette's playful demeanor, Thexerild turned away. "No, thank you. I'd rather starve than eat your food. I need to find my friends." He turned to leave. "Wait, friends? You have friends?" Thexerild stopped, bewildered. "What do you mean by that?" Elette suddenly stood up, a realization dawning on her. In the original story, Thexerild was caught in the underground city incident during the Rebirth Festival. He was the sole survivor. Elette froze. Thexerild, oblivious to her inner turmoil, watched her expectantly. Elette understood. The underground city was about to collapse. Thexerild's underground city. Today, before he could react, a cataclysmic roar erupted, throwing them off their feet. The intense feeling of weightlessness made Elette lose her balance. Thexerild, reacting quickly, grabbed her arm. They plummeted downwards. "Don't let go." At the same time, the other children from the church were also pulled into the chaos. When Elette awoke, she found herself surrounded by toys, lying on top of Thexerild. She stared blankly at her surroundings. Then she saw the system's notification. Panic seized her. She cursed her bad luck, completely oblivious to the fact she was still sprawled across Thexerild. The other children, unaware of the danger, played joyfully with a teddy bear. Thexerild sat up abruptly, dislodging Elette. "Wait, don't touch anything. We're in the underground city." A sinister voice echoed, proclaiming this abasement of joy. A blood-red portal appeared, and a grotesque monster materialized before them. "I am Roderick, Count Orsh's butler. Let's share this joyous time together." This was supposed to be the first meeting between the girl and the hero, but something had gone terribly wrong. Both Elette and Thexerild tumbled into the depths of the joyous mansion, landing before the grim-faced butler who advanced towards them with slow, deliberate steps. The other children who had fallen in scrambled backwards. Now, everyone, don't be nervous. Are you hungry?" The butler produced a bell, summoning a group of unsettling minions. "I've prepared a meal for all my little guests. Please don't be shy. And there are toys here too. Feel free to take whatever you like." His words ignited a spark of excitement in the room. Without a second thought, a boy ate the offered treat. Thexerild, filled with a desperate urgency, tried to intervene, but he was too late. He watched helplessly as the boy clutched his throat, gasping violently before collapsing to the ground in agony. This triggered a chain reaction. One by one, the other children around them fell, each transforming into a lifeless doll with a sickening thud. Aylette stared in horror. Just then, the system alerted her. Within Count Orshu's mansion, reaching a state of apparent death did not mean true death. A wave of terror washed over Aylette as she looked back. She understood. The dolls scattered across the floor were once children, just like them. The sudden, horrifying turn of events sent the remaining children scrambling for an escape. But the doors were already sealed shut. The escalating commotion enraged the butler. He summoned scythe-wielding specters, declaring that if they wanted to survive within the mansion, he would allow only the last one standing to leave. Aylette's eyes widened as she looked at Thexerild. In the original story, he was that fortunate child. Just then, a panicked boy collided with Thexerild, breaking his concentration. The scythe fell. Before a scream could escape his lips, the boy crumpled to the ground. Aylette froze. Thexerild, noticing the paralyzed girl, snapped, "Hey, what are you standing there for?" As his words hung in the air, Aylette reacted, raising her box and smashing it down on the attacking minion. "Everyone snap out of it. Run if you can. Fight if you must." Her words rekindled a spark of hope in the terrified children. As a door burst open, the children surged out in a desperate wave. Having momentarily averted the immediate danger, Aylette turned back to Thexerild, only to freeze in terror. A minion had launched itself into the air, poised to strike the still stunned Thexerild. "Look out!" she screamed. Thexerild, snapping back to reality, spun around, muttering an incantation as he unleashed a retaliatory attack on the airborne minion. As Aylette rushed towards him, heart pounding, Thexerild turned to her. "How did you know my name?" Aylette's mind raced. The hero was certainly perceptive. She couldn't exactly tell him. She knew from a book. Thankfully, the butler summoned more minions. Ignoring his question, Aylette urged, "Now's not the time for this. We need to get out of here." Together, they fled. Their path was littered with the chilling forms of children transformed into dolls. As a cabinet slammed shut, they found a hiding place. "Let's hide here for a bit until they're gone," Thexerild said, then looked at Aylette. She was gasping for breath, on the verge of collapsing. Aylette swore to herself that the moment she returned, she would start rigorous physical training. Looking back at Thexerild, she saw that he was injured. As she reached out to tend his wounds, Thexerild abruptly grabbed her arm. Aylette was startled. "You scare me. You're gripping my arm so tightly. If anyone saw this, they'd think you were the bad guy." Thexerild's eyes narrowed. His grip tightened. "You still haven't answered me. How do you know my name?" The seemingly innocent hero was surprisingly persistent, refusing to release her arm. "Hey, pretty lady, what's your name?" Aylette pushed his arm away. "Sure, be quiet." Aylette, ignoring Thexerild who sulked silently in the corner, rummaged through her bag after administering a pseudo-antidote. She finally produced a vial. "Don't hold back any longer," she said. "This potion is the most effective for counteracting the poison." Thexerild, brimming with curiosity, bombarded Aylette with questions, much to her exasperation. "You're certainly inquisitive," she sighed. "Any other burning questions?" Thexerild glanced at his fist, bewildered. "Why doesn't my divine power diminish when I'm with you? I already explained the divine duty of discipline." Aylette, momentarily stunned, realized the mortal dampening system, which should have affected Thexerild, a mere mortal, wasn't functioning, and, strangely, only when he was near her. "It's not that my divine power doesn't increase when I do good," Thexerild continued, gently wiping a smudge of blood from Aylette's cheek. "It increases, but it doesn't decrease afterward." Aylette was secretly thrilled that the irritating system seemed to be making an exception for her. After all, she thought, my system is constantly monitoring him. Aloud, she said, "Now, will you finally tell me who you are?" Thexerild, however, seemed unwilling to drop the subject. "Still questioning? Huh? This is classified information. I can't just tell anyone." She playfully slapped his arm. "But I can assure you I'm on your side." Thexerild stared at her, captivated by the sincerity in her eyes. Aylette, suddenly remembering something, exclaimed, "Oh, right," and began rummaging in her bag again. She pulled out an assortment of food. "Eat this. You haven't even had a meal, have you? You need your strength. This is super delicious, by the way." Looking at the food in his hands, Thexerild decided to hold back his questions. Besides, he thought, if she were a bad person, she wouldn't be able to wear a life artifact without incident. Aylette opened the cabinet door. "Eat up," she urged. Then we can go deal with those creepy minions. She turned to him. My name is Ailette Rodeline. Just call me Ailette. Thexerilde shyly repeated her name, expressing his gratitude for the food. Ailette found his bashfulness endearing. Opening the cabinet further, she asked, So, do you have a plan? To her surprise, Thexerilde, wanting to shield her from danger, intended to face the evil spirits alone with his companions. Ailette, however, insisted on joining him, pointing out that only she could access the potions in her indispensable backpack. Thexerilde tried to dissuade her, but Ailette remained firm. If they failed, she wouldn't be safe either. Better to take the initiative, especially since she had her divine descent ability. Just then, a jarring electrical buzz echoed from above. It was Roderick, the butler, testing the mansion's intercom system. Enjoying your little game of hide-and-seek with the clown? His voice boomed. The East Wing has the highest survival rate, perhaps because those who fled, there were mostly the strong ones. In contrast, the West Wing's survival rate is abysmal, perhaps because the silver-haired strong ones are truly. He trailed off ominously. Enough games. You must be hungry. I've had delicious food prepared in the banquet hall. Please join me within the hour. I trust none of you children will be so impolite. You've all seen the fireplaces throughout the mansion, haven't you? Count Orshu's mansion is equipped with a state-of-the-art, centrally controlled chimney system. This means I can demonstrate the power of living flame, the power of hellfire, through those very fireplaces. In 1 hour, fire will engulf the entire mansion. Of course, the banquet hall is fireproof. Unless you wish to become crispy critters, I suggest you arrive promptly. That is all. As the butler's chilling announcement ended, Thexerilde pondered his motives. Ailette, still rummaging, muttered, He's going to lace the food with Neo. The children will go berserk. Her words startled Thexerilde. How do you know that? He demanded. That's not important right now. Ailette retorted. We have to stop him. As she spoke, a handful of strange herbs tumbled from her bag. A mischievous grin spread across her face. Let's play with fire, Thexerilde. Meanwhile, the butler checked his pocket watch. The appointed time had arrived. He descended to the basement. Helveros, he called out. It's time to work. A wisp of flame flickered out from within the skeleton. Seeing him emerge, Roderick, the grim butler, began muttering instructions, only to be met with refusal. The flame complained of being too hungry to work. Roderick gestured towards a nearby corpse, suggesting the flame eat it. The small flame protested immediately, declaring itself a vegetarian. The butler exploded. Are you insane? A demon who's a vegetarian? Do you think that's even remotely possible? Get to work before I lose my temper completely, or I'll throw you into the eternal abyss and turn you into a salted fish. With a clang, Roderick departed, leaving the heat-sensitive spirit to stew. He ordered it to heat bathwater to 996 degrees, threatening to toss it into ice water otherwise. The little flame felt utterly abused by the butler's demands. Gnawing on a 200-year-old bone, it grumbled and hopped out of the chimney to carry out its task. Oh, when will I ever taste sweet grass again? It lamented, paying no attention to where it landed. Reacting with surprise, it clutched at the greenery beneath it, its face a mask of confusion. The next moment, the sight before it sparked pure joy. The room was filled with fresh, delicious-looking grass. Overcome with happiness, it exclaimed, Holy moly! Grass! Delicious grass! After 200 years, as it reveled in its discovery, Ailette, hidden in the shadows, urged Thexerilde to stay silent. That elite from the sanctuary is a total goofball, she whispered. Elsewhere, someone offered a cake to a smaller companion, only to have it swatted away. Are you crazy? Staring at the discarded cake, Ipel tried to figure out what the evil spirit had added to it. Castillo, however, remained uninterested, turning to look elsewhere. He saw that the children who had eaten the food were no longer acting human. There must be a displacement agent in it, he observed. Why else would everyone suddenly become violent and attack each other? Just then, a child leaped up, brandishing a dinner knife, seemingly intent on attacking the pair. Still flirting at a time like this? Ipel quickly stepped forward, blocking the attack. Support, give me some power, Ipel cried. Castillo, sweating nervously, held back. He saw no need to use his divine power against a mere child. Ipel, on the other hand, was exhilarated. He believed they were all evil spirits. At that moment, Roderick, fresh from his bath, arrived on the scene. taking in the exhilarating scene before him. He amplified the corrupting influence, intending to drive the crazed children to slaughter each other and turn them into a bloody mess. A sudden, thick fog interrupted his grandstanding, covering his freshly bathed body in grime. Furious, he roared, "Helveros!" The little flame, now a different color, cowered, afraid to speak. "I just bathed, and you've made me filthy again. Wait, why have you changed color?" As the butler stared in bewilderment, the children suddenly returned to their senses, utterly confused. Eipold, too, was taken aback. Seeing this, Roderick immediately whirled around to face the little flame. "Was that grass? What did you eat?" he demanded. Seeing the butler's enraged face, the little flame nervously backed away, preparing to flee. But Roderick caught it and hurled it away. "So it's an antidote, you imbecile. Instead of doing your job, you're planting antidotes in the basement. You useless thing." He stamped on the flame. The two onlookers, already bewildered, were now even more so. With a few crunches, the flame vanished, leaving behind a gem. Seething with rage, Roderick immediately moved on to the next stage of his game. He snapped his fingers. A tremendous rumble shook the hall. The children staggered, on the verge of collapsing. As the floor cracked open, a gigantic mole monster emerged. But instead of attacking, it turned its back and muttered to itself. Castillo was speechless, unsure what the creature was doing. Screams from behind him interrupted his thoughts. Something was growing out of the children's heads. "Holy crap, my head itches. Is it growing a brain?" Roderick grinned wickedly. "Yes, something is growing out of your heads. Beautiful red spider lilies, thriving on you as their nourishment. Let me explain further. Depending on the type of brain, the spider lilies will bloom in different colors. And the purplish-black spider lily, well, that's a millennial rarity, a true prize. I've never seen anything like it," Castillo muttered, eyes fixed on the mole monster ahead. Castillo, realizing the danger, urged the surrounding children to stay put. But Eipold continued to wriggle about, oblivious. Exasperated, Castillo flung open a door. A flower suddenly sprouted from the top of Eipold's head. He wore a miserable expression, complaining about having eaten sand. Castillo, thoroughly unimpressed, yanked at the flower, muttering furiously. "This nitwit, Eipold, with a head full of mush, has finally bloomed. I'm going to pull him apart today." Roderick, the butler, offered a chillingly polite warning. If they pulled the flower out, it would instantly burrow into the children's brains. Both Castillo and Eipold froze. Staring at Roderick and the mole monster, they understood. Eliminating these two was the only way to stop the impending doom. Meanwhile, Alette and Thexerild were sprinting towards the banquet hall. Alette, however, faltered, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Are you all right?" Thexerild asked. Alette, panting, insisted she was fine and tried to push onward. But above her head, a purplish-black flower unfurled, radiating a strange allure. A small head crowned with a sinister bloom. Any evil spirit that saw it would fall in love. Just moments ago, Eipold and Castillo had tried to put up a fight. Roderick, unfazed, swiftly knocked them to the ground. Looking down at the two fallen children, a sinister smile spread across the butler's face. "Now's the time. Finish them off." The obese mole monster lumbered forward, ready to obliterate them. Doom loomed. The two children tried to escape, but they were too weak. Just as they braced for the inevitable, a resounding clang echoed through the hall. Roderick stared in astonishment at the sudden attack that had cleaved the mole monster in two. "What the hell? How'd that guy get here?" Thexerild stood there, a figure of magnificent, terrifying grace. Enraged, Roderick lunged, ready to turn Thexerild's head into a smashed watermelon. Then he stopped, startled. "Is it over already, Thexerild?" It was Alette who had arrived. The purplish-black flower on her head continued to shimmer captivatingly. Roderick was mesmerized. Patting the deceased mole monster, he felt a surge of elation. He'd stumbled upon an incredibly rare spider lily. "May I inquire as to your name, young lady with the pink hair?" Alette blinked, momentarily confused. I'm Alette Rodline." Roderick extended a hand, a lecherous grin twisting his features. He wanted Alette to come with him. He simply had to buy her some pretty dresses. Thexerild and Castillo exchanged wary glances. What was Roderick up to now? To their surprise, Alette readily agreed, but on one condition: Roderick had to spare the children in the dungeon. Roderick's smile faltered, but the lure of the flower on Ailette's head was too strong. He agreed. Ailette beamed, delighted. Roderick, practically giddy, beckoned her closer. But someone else wasn't happy. A blade flashed, aimed straight at the butler. Fexerild pulled Ailette into a protective embrace. I will never hand her over to you. Ailette froze, stunned by Fexerild's words. Panic welled within her. Her plan had been to lure the children outside and then unleash a divine strike on Roderick. Roderick ground his teeth in frustration, but the potential fortune represented by the purplish-black spider lily was too tempting to ignore. With a whoosh, he vanished from the banquet hall. Ailette groaned inwardly. She'd wanted Roderick to take her with him. Her express ticket to the boss level was gone. Why did you do that? Fexerild demanded, his voice thick with anger. Were you planning to sacrifice yourself to save everyone? Nobody asked you to be a hero, Ailette. You're not a saint, nor a paladin. You have no reason to sacrifice yourself for us. Ailette stared at Fexerild, speechless, his gaze unwavering. Ailette wanted to die. Here she was, a 30-something single woman, being lectured by a 10-year-old boy. Eipel and Castillo, overhearing the exchange, stood frozen in awkward silence. Because Fexerild, always hampered by his divine power, a complete novice, actually said something so impressive today. Unbelievable. Poor Ailette, for Fexerild's peace of mind, is suffering terribly. I know I was wrong. I'm sorry. I'll never do it again. Stop nagging. Stop nagging. Fexerild looked down at the ground. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you. The children's cries suddenly interrupted them. To escape the strangeness, they immediately decided to regroup and leave. Just then, Ailette, following behind Fexerild, saw something. A reddish glowing stone, looking rather eerie. The fearless Ailette, filled with curiosity, picked it up, looking completely bewildered. The others ahead immediately called out to her, urging her not to dawdle, or Fexerild would surely get angry again. Ailette quickly agreed, preparing to bring the stone back with her. She then trotted after them. Fexerild, are you angry? I'm not. Don't make things up. Meanwhile, in the depths of the dungeon, Count Orshu was stirring, awaiting their arrival. Mao, the young man, bravely saved his teammates. The next second, the two were ready to disassociate themselves from him. But seeing the potion Ailette produced, their expressions immediately changed. They declared themselves to be good companions with Fexerild, claiming they owed their lives to him. Ailette was delighted by their apparent sincerity. Castillo, at this moment, noticed the herbs on the ground and realized that Ailette was the beauty who had saved them. Eipel, his mind still muddled, immediately slammed his fist, declaring his intent to fight the evil spirits. But remembering their current situation, with only the 4 of them left, Ailette quickly asked where their companions were. Castillo lowered his head, lost in thought. Weren't there 11 holy balancers in total? Fexerild looked nervously at Castillo. Just moments ago, during their battle with the butler had informed them that the other holy balancers had perished heroically. The atmosphere instantly grew heavy. Everyone, we haven't even started fighting, and morale is already this low? Before Ailette could finish, Castillo stubbornly suggested that if they used divine descent, the person in danger might have a chance. Ailette immediately stopped speaking, trembling, thinking they couldn't know that person was her. After all, if she were discovered, they would surely drag her to the order to be a laborer. The creation flame spirit was also making a fuss, yelling at the balance-adjusting noob to mind his own business. After all, Ailette was his first believer, and he had to protect her. Their bickering interrupted Ailette's thoughts. There's no need to discuss this now. Our current group isn't weak. As long as the 4 of us work together, we can definitely defeat the evil spirits. Fexerild immediately agreed with Ailette's confident words. Eipel, not particularly interested in this, picked up a sandwich and stuffed it into his mouth. If there's no other way, we'll implement the backup plan. Didn't the butler say the sole survivor could leave this place? Castillo was immediately enraged by his nonsense, yelling at him to stop being ridiculous. Ailette was speechless, watching the two argue. After eating and drinking their fill, the 4 of them fought their way to their final destination. We're here. The boss is right here. Castillo was completely bewildered. After all, they had only been walking for 2.5 minutes. Ailette, however, looked smug, having followed the system's instructions like a cheat. You seem to know everything, and you have an endless supply of potions in that bag. Who are you, really? Ailette froze. Just as she was struggling, Eipel approached Ailette and Castillo. Now's not the time to talk about this. Before we fight the boss, I have something to say to you. Then, with a sincere expression, "Please give me another bottle of potion. It's so delicious." Kestio immediately yelled that he was going to kill the goofball. Aylett quickly stopped them, promising to make them something even more delicious once they were out. As the door opened, the massive boss appeared before them. The four of them looked grave, on high alert. "Come on, I've been waiting for you." As the boss raised its head, it uttered an unknown incantation. Seeing the strange system prompt regarding the boss, Aylett immediately sensed something was wrong. Before she could react, the three of them lunged forward as one. Aylett, momentarily stunned, then pressed her attack with renewed ferocity. To their surprise, the trio managed to overpower the boss monster, eventually bringing it crashing down. Eipel cheered, but Thexerild remained perplexed. There was no sign of an escape route. Suddenly, Kestio, standing off to the side, cried out in alarm. Aylett tackled him to the ground. A purplish-red attack flashed past, striking the spot where Kestio had just been standing. What was going on? The boss was dead. Where had that attack come from? In the next instant, Roderick, the butler, with a sinister grin plastered across his face, leaped down from above. "My instincts were right. You truly are remarkable, Mississippi. No matter how I look at it, I feel like you've peered into my very soul. I'll ask you one last time. Will you come with me? If you submit to me, I'll even agree to make you my bride." Covered in goosebumps, Aylett was utterly bewildered. What in the world is he talking about? Don't tell me that because of this monstrous flower on my head, an evil spirit has fallen in love with me and wants an eternal romance. Aylett was completely dumbfounded. Then a wave of anger washed over her. A proposal without a ring is meaningless. Roderick, as if jolted awake, abandoned the others and declared he would arrange an unforgettable proposal ceremony for Aylett. Kestio found the whole situation absurd. Thexerild, equally surprised, assumed Aylett was about to sacrifice herself again. But Aylett pulled out several vials. "That was just to buy us some time. Just a bit of stalling. Time to take our medicine." She offered a vial filled with a cilantro-flavored concoction to a bewildered Eipel. "Thank you. Using you as the last supper should be enough. But Aylett, you know that even if we weren't injured, we wouldn't stand a chance against Roderick." Eipel downed the potion, forcing himself upright. "I am sorry. It seems I have no choice but to use the backup plan." The others stared at Eipel, completely baffled by his defeatist words. A despondent Eipel continued, addressing Thexerild, "I hate to admit it, but you're the strongest among us. The one who deserves to survive the most is you." Without waiting for Thexerild to react, Eipel raised his arm high, preparing to strike Aylett a fatal blow. "It won't hurt for long. I'll be with you soon." The dagger plunged down. Thexerild screamed, trying to intervene, but it was too late. A sickening thud echoed through the air. Eipel collapsed. Kestio, having regained consciousness, appeared. Thexerild, already bewildered, was now even more confused. "You're awake? You didn't drink it." Aylett, seeing Thexerild still standing, was completely lost. Thexerild, in an attempt to revive the unconscious Kestio, had given him her own potion. Just then, Roderick returned, a 999-carat diamond ring in hand, beaming with delight. Left with no other choice, Aylett prepared to initiate her second backup plan. She shoved a bewildered Thexerild forward. "You take the front, I'll take the rear. Strategic briefing complete. Charge, my love." Thexerild, acutely aware of her own limitations, turned to question Aylett, but froze in place. Aylett was bathed in holy light, an aura of sanctity surrounding her. Divine descent, Balala the fairies, full body transformation. Yukala, transform. Thexerild stared at the transformed Aylett, her face a mask of incomprehension. Roderick, however, was filled with terror. Omnipotent shield of defense. Aylett, now with flowing white hair, immediately launched her attack. A blinding light filled the chamber. Roderick roared in fury. "You dare toy with a demon's heart with your honeyed traps, you devil. I'll send you to hell for this." Aylett didn't hesitate. "You disgusting pervert." She unleashed her power. A divine blast of energy hurtled towards him. But Roderick remained unharmed, a twisted smile on his face. "Ha ha, that paltry attack won't even dampen the flames of my love." He charged towards Aylett, weapon in hand. At that critical moment, suddenly, a holy sword intercepted Roderick's attack. It was Thexerild, who had been seemingly disengaged until that moment, blocking the evil spirit. "Don't even think about touching him." Seeing Thexerild come to her aid, Aylett no longer hesitated. Alet invoked the omnipotent holy hymn. As the skill took effect, Fexerild was instantly imbued with immense power. He unleashed a furious assault upon the evil spirit, sending it flying. Confronted by the two figures radiating holy light, Roderick, for the first time in his existence, felt fear. Die, you little calamity-born girl. Not only was she a supremely powerful healer and support, but she had also honed her hand-to-hand combat skills for 2.5 years. Even facing this incredibly strong, evil spirit, she showed no restraint. With a single binding maneuver, she trapped him. As Count Orshu, now possessed by the evil spirit, struggled helplessly, Alet, with a flick of her wrist, directed Fexerild to attack. She then unleashed her own power. The omnipotent holy light struck true. The evil spirit receded. With a crack, the holy light enveloped Count Orshu's head. A scream echoed through the hall. Fexerild stared at the dissipating evil spirit, dumbfounded. My body, it's fading. Why? The gods abandoned this place long ago. How can someone still use divine descent? Before anyone could answer, Count Orshu vanished. Fexerild was utterly bewildered by the scene. Alet landed softly. So it was you. You're the saintess the Order is looking for. The two stared at each other in silence. To break the awkwardness, Alet, rubbing her sore arm, said, Fexerild, you've worked hard. She then trotted off to the side. Let's go check out the loot. Looks like a skill book. Look, a tank exclusive and a healing manual. Just enough for one each. Watching Alet try to change the subject, Fexerild voiced his confusion. How is this possible? I didn't sense any divine power in you. Alet nodded, acknowledging his words. It's normal to be curious, but this is all the grace and protection of the gods. I simply possess divine descent to protect myself. The deity, however, didn't quite agree with Alet's humble brag. She had, in fact, pestered him relentlessly for the power. The creator god, however, was quite pleased, as Alet was his most devoted follower. Fexerild lowered his head in disbelief. Alet quickly interrupted his thoughts. I know the Order is looking for me, but I don't want to join them yet. So, please keep today's events a secret. Fexerild remained silent. Alet assumed he wouldn't agree. After all, this genre's male lead was always full of responsibility and a sense of mission. To her surprise, Fexerild readily agreed. Alet, having prepared herself for an argument, was taken aback. Wait, what? Even if you're the saintess, I won't force you to do anything you don't want to. Don't you have family? You should go back to them. Looking at Fexerild's sincere expression, Alet didn't know how to respond. Thank you. I didn't think you were so not boring. Fexerild was speechless, unsure if she was insulting him or expressing some sort of affection. To end the conversation, Alet handed him the skill book. As Fexerild opened it, a blue holy light washed over him. What skill is it? Hearing Alet's question, Fexerild collected his thoughts. Shared protection. If you're injured, I can transfer the damage to myself, and I'll share half your pain. Alet was astonished. It seemed fitting that the male lead of a tragic story would receive a skill based on suffering. She then opened her own book, hoping for a more conventional ability. The skill name appeared before her eyes. Beloved's Bond, effective only on partners, increases the effect of all healing skills by 5 times. Alet's joy was short-lived as she saw the additional notes. This skill was a treasured possession of Count Orshu, intended for his future bride. It has significant clinical effects on a partner's HP recovery. Best used in bed. Alet swatted away the inappropriate system message. That evil spirit was truly disgusting. The aftereffects of divine descent were setting in. Alet swayed, about to collapse. Fexerild rushed forward, catching her in his arms. Fexerild, she whispered, her voice weak. There's something I need to ask you. Listening to Alet's frail words, Fexerild readily agreed. Fexerild, Alet said, a flower-like smile blooming on her face. It was nice knowing you. Let's meet again sometime. Amidst Fexerild's frantic calls, Alet slipped into unconsciousness. 2.5 hours later, the Saint Emperor's Hall was in chaos. Thankfully, all the children were safe and sound. The Order had noticed the divine descent, but none of the children caught in the incident possessed such immense mystical power. The young saintess candidate, upon regaining consciousness, claimed that the ringleader had already been vanquished when she awoke. Thus, people could only attribute the miraculous event to the Holy Mother. Meanwhile, Elette remained unconscious. Her body burned with a fever of 48.7 degrees. Thexerild watched over her, speechless with worry. Suddenly, a companion urged him to assist the crowd outside. He had no choice but to agree. But halfway there, his feet stopped. Elette's smile and her last words echoed in his mind. "It was nice knowing you. Let's meet again sometime." As Thexerild departed, the holy relic on Elette's chest emanated a sacred glow. Having absorbed sufficient divine power, it triggered a resonance with the soul of the previous saintess. The departed saintess opened her eyes. Looking at the girl lying in the bed, she chuckled. "You managed to wake me up while you were sleeping? My, this body is frail. A divine fever, you say? You must not exercise much and have a rather limited diet. You need to exercise regularly. A vessel for the divine shouldn't be this weak." The former saintess, now inhabiting Elette's body, encouraged her to train. Life after awakening was quite pleasant. She gathered a few skeleton minions and, accompanied by a small flame sprite, arrived at her territory. The little flame, leaping high, seemed overjoyed. Looking at her minions, Elette immediately expressed her concern. "Hey, be careful not to burn my laborers, or I'll make you clean the latrines." Bianca, standing nearby, looked worried, fearing the flame sprite's presence would disrupt their money-making schemes. But Elette found the sprite quite useful, thinking it could serve as a heater in the winter. "Are you sure this is okay?" Bianca asked, voicing her doubts. Elette reassured her, explaining that the little flame sprite was only interested in green grass. "I wasn't talking about him," Bianca clarified. "I'm asking about you. You came back burning up like a furnace. If I'd known it was so dangerous, I wouldn't have let you go." Touched by Bianca's genuine concern, Elette was momentarily stunned. Then, she excitedly hugged Bianca, assuring her that she was fine and had even rescued the trapped children. Everything had gone incredibly well. Inwardly, she thought about how she'd avoided the heart-wrenching events of the original storyline, sparing Thexerild from grief. Lost in thought, Elette wondered if altering the storyline for the male lead would cause any problems. But the pesky prosecutor in her mind interrupted her musings, chastising her worries. The creation flame spirit also stepped in to defend its master. "Don't worry so much," it urged. Elette, in turn, encouraged the spirit, leaving Bianca utterly bewildered. To avoid suspicion, Elette excused herself, saying she needed to commune with the divine. Bianca, left behind, was convinced that Elette was truly a devout follower. Once alone, Elette addressed the creation flame spirit. "I was supposed to enter the timeline during the protagonist's 17th rebirth, but the tutorial takes place before his rebirth. Won't this affect the later storyline?" she asked. The creation flame spirit immediately reassured her. In the following chapters, the protagonist will act alongside his surviving companions. Their linked skills will be preserved. But because your soul doesn't belong here, it won't affect the subsequent plot. Although the protagonist, as the axis of rebirth, will remember you, this world will ignore that connection and erase you from all chapters except the 17th. Elette was speechless. She sat down beneath a tree, recalling their last moments together, worried that Thexerild's fragmented memories would drive him mad. The thought of Thexerild asking his companions if they had seen her, only to be met with blank stares, and then of him agonizing over how to see her again, sent Elette leaping to her feet, fists clenched. Ready to unleash the power of microtransactions, she swiftly purchased the items she had long hesitated over, preparing to become a swordsman. The system promptly notified her that she had acquired the swordsman abilities. Elette immediately snatched up a branch from the ground. Holding it aloft with a surge of fighting spirit, she prepared to unleash her newfound powers, ready to awaken as a master of sword chi. After 2.5 minutes of practice, Beyond prepared to call Thexerild back, only to find him looking utterly haggard. Beyond was taken aback. Meanwhile, Elette, in her own realm, was in utter disbelief. She couldn't believe how utterly inept she was, sitting on the steps with the branch in hand. She questioned the creation flame spirit, asking if she simply lacked any natural talent. But the spirit encouraged her, insisting she just needed the right kind of training. Just as Elette decided she needed a teacher's guidance, or perhaps a tutorial video, a voice interrupted her thoughts. "Do you need a teacher?" A bewildered Elette looked around. As the necklace around her neck began to hum, lifting into the air, a beautiful saintess appeared before her. "Greetings, successor saintess." Elette, startled, cried out in alarm. "Holy crap, a ghost." The determined young woman, having used her microtransaction powers, found her body too weak. 2.5 minutes of sore practice, and her class hadn't changed a bit. Frustrated, she questioned the divine beings on how to solve her problem. Suddenly, the former saintess made a dazzling entrance, leaving Ilette utterly dumbfounded. While Ilette believed the newcomer to be a ghost, the saintess didn't miss a beat, introducing herself. "Successor saintess, could you please call me Agnes, not Ghost? I am one of the heroes who sacrificed themselves to stop the dungeon outbreak. Does that explanation clarify my origins?" Understanding dawned. It was Cardelia's friend. Aelette excitedly tried to establish a connection. Agnes responded curtly, before cutting her off. "You said you needed a teacher, correct? I believe I can help you." Aelette stared at the saintess in confusion, unaware that her true profession was the Saint Emperor Hall's chief hell instructor. Agnes, donning sunglasses, assumed Aelette had agreed and barked at her to begin training immediately. Aelette, already bewildered, became even more so as her surroundings shifted to Gillette Burrow, a prime training ground. Before Aelette could react, Agnes shoved her forward, instructing her to start with physical conditioning, a 20-mile run. From a high sun to the setting sun, Aelette ran. Covered in grime, Aelette collapsed to the ground, utterly exhausted. "Good work, trainee Aelette. Considering it's your first day, training is over. We'll continue tomorrow." With that, Agnes vanished. Aelette, unable to move, felt like she had descended into hell, with no way to refund her microtransaction powers. With only F-rank stamina, her body ached all over. She lay there, crying out for her brother, but no one answered. The Emerald God simply mocked her, suggesting she use more of her microtransaction abilities. Aelette's heart sank. The creation flame spirit quickly chased away the jeering god. Looking at the condor Aelette, it felt a pang of sympathy. As the sun disappeared completely, Aelette shivered in the cold, unable to bear Aelette's suffering any longer. The creation flame spirit impulsively splurged and gifted her 30 packs of divine essence. "What is this stuff?" Aelette was bewildered. The other gods were shocked. After all, consuming divine essence granted 2 hours of boundless energy, making 2 hours of exercise equivalent to a week's worth. Aelette excitedly clutched the flame spirit's gift. The other gods were incredulous. That was their entire month's salary. Ignoring them, Aelette ripped open a pack and drank it down. Instantly, she was astonished, feeling a surge of inexhaustible energy coursing through her. Her muscles became clearly defined. 1 bottle invigorates the mind. 2 bottles banish fatigue forever. 3 bottles grant immortality. Truly a must-have remedy for home and travel. Aelette immediately called out Agnes's name. Agnes, intensely observing from behind, saw Aelette brimming with energy. "I want to keep practicing." Though suspicious of Aelette's sudden vigor, Agnes attributed it to her strong will. Aelette quickly declared her intention to go 007 on her training. "After all," she explained, "this is all thanks to the creation flame spirit's love and care." Agnes, no longer hesitating, instructed her to run another 520 kilometers. Aelette immediately took off. As she ran, Aelette felt her experience points rapidly increasing. She was close to leveling up. Her fluid movements left Agnes stunned. "Aelette truly is a legendary saintess," she murmured. "Most importantly," she continued, "she's full of enthusiasm. No matter how tough or tiring the training, she faces it with a smile." Agnes was incredibly pleased. The future is bright. Not only does she have the Transmigrator's essential cheat abilities, but the divine spirits also clearly favor her. To gain a stronger body, Aelette and Agnes engaged in a hellish training regime. As time swiftly passed, Aelette's small figure appeared amidst the smoke-filled training grounds, a triumphant grin on her face. Her wall had reached level 17. "Trainee Aelette, you're truly exceptional. I thought it would take you at least a month to reach this level. I can't believe you did it in just 2.5 days of practice. You haven't been sneaking any additives, have you?" Fortunately, Agnes didn't pry further, instead instructing her to prepare for the next phase of training. With that, she produced an array of 18 weapons, a holy sword materializing in her hand. She explained to Aelette why masters of swordsmanship are called sword saints. It's because sword chi is formless, like flowing water. To control it will requires more than just intention. A skilled user can infuse sword chi into anything, transforming it into a weapon. And the higher the realm of the weapon, the greater its power. With increased proficiency, its hardness can even surpass diamond. Agnes tossed her holy sword into the air, conjuring a spectral image of the blade. Ilette watched in awe. That's so cool. Instructor, will I be able to do that someday? Agnes nodded. Of course, but before that, you need to choose a suitable weapon. Even if your technique is perfect, finding the right weapon isn't easy. Those who have never even held a sword will feel an endless sense of frustration. But you're in luck. I can use any weapon. Whatever you choose, I can teach you. Ilette gulped, a smile spreading across her face. After all, she was a transmigrator empowered by the system. Filled with determination, she began practicing under Agnes's guidance. Leveling up was as easy as drinking water. Before long, she switched weapons, picking up a spear and beginning her spear skill training. Agnes was utterly dumbfounded, as Ilette's spear skills rapidly improved. Agnes's astonishment only grew. How can such a monster exist? Ilette, a smug look on her face, felt practically invincible. Suppressing her bewilderment, Agnes asked Ilette to choose her main weapon. Ilette picked up a sword and a whip, declaring her intention to master both. Agnes stared at the diminutive Ilette, surprised by her choice. She didn't choose those on purpose, did she? She wondered. But Ilette's expression was resolute. I've heard stories about you, Instructor Agnes. You're the saintess from a humble background, one of the continent's heroes. You were on the front lines, stopping the eruption of the Ice Palace dungeon. In your 20s, you earned the title of Weapon Master and even created your own unique sword style. That's the Serpent Father swordsmanship, Agnes said, her face grim, revered for its exquisite technique across all nations. She explained that the Serpent Father style had an incredibly high barrier to entry. Mastery of both swordsmanship and whip fighting was essential, honed to the highest level. Furthermore, one sword key had to reach a transcendental realm before even beginning to learn it. But Ilette didn't flinch. With unwavering determination etched on her face, she declared her intention to master it. Seeing Ilette's resolve, Agnes smiled faintly. Very well. The training ahead will be grueling. Don't give up halfway. You must learn this diligently. Ilette readily agreed. Time flew by, and exhaustion was now clearly visible on Ilette's face. Hearing Bianca call her name, Ilette startled awake. Oh, I'm sorry, Bianca. What were you saying? Bianca, however, was deeply concerned. Ilette insisted she was fine and then asked how Bianca's successor training was progressing. After all, Bianca had to find time to organize the establishment of the Merchant Guild alongside her studies. Leaning against Bianca, Ilette continued, starting tomorrow, the potion's father and Maid will be on store shelves. Things have gone so smoothly thanks to you, but I'm a little nervous about actually starting to sell them. Bianca offered reassurance. It'll be fine. Our potions have those special additives. After all, they'll be selling like hotcakes across the city in no time. Comforted, Ilette stood up straight. We're going to sell tons and tons of potions. The big battle is in 2.5 days. The bustling streets now featured Ilette's potions. A passerby picked one up, examining the instructions. Suddenly, an old man rushed past from behind. Heavens, look, it's Big Brother Periel. At that moment, a heavily muscled man with a pack slung over his shoulder strode down the street. The onlookers wore expressions of envy. With each ripple of his pectoral muscles, the bearded, powerfully built man exuded an aura of strength. Another day for these glorious muscles to shine. Blessed by the gods as a top-tier transmigrator, he was incredibly diligent. All 18 forms of weaponry were within his grasp. Determined to change her fate, Ilette, along with her best friend, began selling their crafted potions. Little did they know, a man of immense muscularity was about to arrive at their stall. The crowd gasped in admiration at the sight of his impressive physique. That same day, Periel toiled away in the mines. The clang of his pickaxe against the rock drew everyone's attention. With a mighty crack, the massive boulder before him vanished into dust. He flexed his fist confidently. Seems like my pecs and spinal erectors are in a good mood today. My deltoids and lats seem a bit grumpy, though. I'll have to pamper them later. His perfect physique was the envy of all the miners. time for my chicken and potion supplement, he declared, reaching for a vial in his pouch. He gulped it down in one go. The taste, however, was less than pleasant, leaving his tongue numb. But for the sake of his powerful body, Periel swallowed it all down. He then picked up his pickaxe, ready to resume his work. With a single swing, the stone shattered. Wow, Big Brother Periel is amazing. He can split mountains with his pickaxe. The veteran miner's words left the newcomer in disbelief. Periel's strength alone rivaled that of beings wielding sword ki. As the two discussed Periel's incredible prowess, the rock face above them suddenly crumbled. A gaping maw lunged out. The sudden attack froze the veteran miner in place. The chrysanthemum monster landed squarely where the two had been standing just moments before. Having narrowly escaped death, the veteran miner stared in horror at the monstrous creature, assuming the newcomer was dead. "Don't worry, everyone. This young man is all right." Periel emerged, holding the bewildered newcomer like a small child. "Young man, are you hurt?" Facing the man who had saved him, a figure seemingly descended from the heavens. The newcomer blushed, nestled against Periel's chest. "And no, I'm fine." Meanwhile, the chrysanthemum monster continued to devour the fleeing crowd. Periel, however, wore a look of disdain. He noticed the starry-eyed newcomer slowly approaching the monster. Clenching his fists, the newcomer leaped high and slammed down onto the monster's body. The surrounding crowd, witnessing this scene, hesitated, unable to believe their eyes. Periel, however, simply lifted the monster, his eyes wide. With a single move, he dispatched the vicious spirit. The rescued miners immediately offered their reverence. Just as he was basking in the crowd's praise, Periel suddenly jolted. He saw the shattered vials. "Oh my God, my muscle supplements. They're all broken. No, if I don't replenish every 2.5 hours, my muscles will completely atrophy." Meanwhile, the newcomer knelt before Periel. A potion. He then respectfully offered a vial. "Thank you for saving me. Please accept this muscle supplement as a token of my gratitude." Although Periel, as a true muscle man, didn't want to accept his kindness for the sake of his muscles. He took the vial. Looking at the tag that read Road, he assumed it was a generic brand and was quite perplexed. But he drank it all in one gulp, and then he jolted again. The potion was incredibly delicious. For Periel, who had only ever consumed boiled watermelon rind, it was like a baptism for his very being. Alchemist Road is truly exceptional. The surrounding crowd, watching the moved Periel, began to murmur amongst themselves, preparing to go and purchase the potion. Meanwhile, back at the Earl's mansion, the sweating butler was frantically searching for Roadline. "It's a disaster. Our entire month's supply of goods has sold out." Roadline was astonished. Elet was equally surprised. The founder encouraged him, saying that at this rate, Elet would definitely be able to afford the plot change. The gods, too, chattered amongst themselves, urging Elet to choose an awesome storyline. But Elet only wanted to be the beloved daughter in a pampered child story. The balance-conscious Viper, however, deflated the mood. "By the time you save 10 billion in cash, you'll probably be an adult." Elet froze, stunned. Her father scooped her up. "Now's not the time to be daydreaming. We need to make more potions. Once work is done, our little Elet can have anything she wants. Daddy won't be so obsessed then." Listening to Roadline's excited words, Elet's eyes teared up. Seeing her father's happy face, she felt happy too. Okay, we'll work even harder than an old ox. Go, Daddy." Her name was Elet Roadline. To change her fate, she worked tirelessly, making a mountain of potions. Phew, this many potions should meet the shop's demand. Roadline, his wife, and Elet wiped the sweat from their brows, sighing. After all, the three of them had worked tirelessly day and night for 99 and 87 hours. Elet wore a weary expression. "Wow, that's a lot. If we sell all of these, we'll be rich, right? By the way, Elet, what do you want to do when we're rich?" Elet, caught off guard by the question, paused. "I want to send my brother to the Discrimination Officer Academy. After paying the tuition, I'll save the rest for a rainy day." Inwardly, however, she longed to spend it all on the system shop. Roadline, unaware of her thoughts, beamed with pride. He pulled both children into a tight hug. "You two are my pride and joy. If only your mother were here too. Kids, after we become rich, Daddy wants to visit the place where I used to live with your mother." Elet pouted, confused. After all, like the original Elet, she had lost her mother early on. The only difference was that her mother hadn't died after giving birth to her, but had vanished from their world. Roadline's face was filled with reminiscence. Ailette, feeling no connection to her mother, was about to say that they had been abandoned, but her brother quickly covered her mouth, interrupting her. How did mother and father meet? You're asking about our first encounter? I still remember it vividly. In response to his son's question, Rodeline recalled the scene. He had been gathering herbs in the forest when he discovered an injured woman lying unconscious on the ground. He brought her home, and from there, love blossomed between them. Those days were truly blissful. He often went out hunting, but would lie and say he'd scavenged the meat. He'd then urge me to stew it. I still remember the first time I had to clean animal entrails. I cried so hard. Ailette was very suspicious, feeling that father was suffering for mother. But when Ailette was 2.5, he suddenly vanished. After all, he did seem like a being from another world. Even if one day he suddenly regained his memories and returned to his own world, I wouldn't resent him. Ailette's face showed hesitation. After all, father didn't hate mother. Rodeline then picked up Ailette. He left me 2 treasures. I'm truly grateful to him. As Ailette pondered this, Prince's words startled both of them. Father, I don't think mother abandoned us. Actually, I always thought it was a dream, so I never mentioned the night mother disappeared. I saw him. He suddenly got out of bed, grabbed a hoe and a basket, and went out. To young Prince's calls, he simply told him to go back to sleep, saying he had to go and punish some ignorant black. Foul! Ailette and Rodeline looked at each other in disbelief, thinking their mother might not have been an ordinary housewife. Rodeline wrung his hands, worried about the livestock. Could he have encountered danger while trying to catch a coin? Ailette, ever perceptive, thought, father truly loves mother deeply. She then pondered the meaning of maternal love. After all, the girl, having lived 2 lives, no longer had mother. She wanted to visit the home she once lived in, hoping it might stir some pleasant memories. However, due to system settings, she couldn't leave the mansion grounds. Suddenly, the ding-dong sounded. Creation Flame Tomb consumes probability star to issue you a quest. The sudden surprise delighted Ailette. She felt that Lord Flame Tomb truly cared for her. The poison snake, responsible for balancing the game, immediately protested. The quest reward was completely disproportionate to its difficulty, but Creation Flame Tomb ignored him. Humming a tune, Father, were you with mother at the Golden Ivory Tower? So, our previous home was in the Hesperal Duchy. Faced with his daughter's sudden question, Rodeline, though startled, confirmed it. He then watched, bewildered, as Ailette left. Ailette, what are you doing? Didn't you say you wanted to visit the home you shared with mother? If you want to go to the Hesperal Duchy, we need to make at least another week's worth of potions. Rodeline was unsure how to respond to his daughter's sudden concern. I'll help you, father. We must go back together. Seeing his son also determined to fulfill his wish, Rodeline was overcome with emotion. And as the 3 worked hard towards their goal of returning home, a burly figure strode forward with powerful steps. Your Highness, you've returned. A man resembling a butler bowed respectfully. It's been a while. Your muscles seem even more magnificent. The newcomer was Alan Jack, who had toiled in the mines, the Hesperal, and now the current Duke of the Hesperal Duchy. Thank you for the compliment. I heard there's an important matter I need to attend to. I even interrupted my muscle training for this, which upset them quite a bit. The butler remained calm. We found the missing Maid's trail. Periel was startled. He slammed his hand down. Where is she? Where's that place? The butler didn't hesitate. We detected the Maid's sword aura in a dungeon within the forest near the Duke's mansion grounds. Finally knowing his daughter's whereabouts, Periel was overjoyed. Eltia, my daughter, whom I've longed for all these years. I can finally see you. The Duke's attendant added, Your Highness, ever since the Maid severed ties with you, you've been despondent all these years. But thankfully, Your Highness found solace in muscle training. Otherwise, I can't imagine how heartbroken you would be. Periel abruptly shifted from his sorrow, flexing. Look, my biceps and triceps are overjoyed. Can you hear them laughing? The butler could only agree, inwardly thinking the Duke's muscle obsession had gone too far. Eltia, wait for me. I will definitely find you. Meanwhile, Ailette and her 2 companions arrived at his territory. This section seems to abruptly shift focus, assuming it refers to Rodeline based on the context of the previous lines and the summary document. He was a brilliant alchemist from the Golden Ivory Tower, but his incompetent teacher stole his achievements. After being discovered, the teacher shifted the blame to Rodeline and expelled him. Years later, Rodeline returned with his 2 children. They ate delicious ice cream. He spoke of their mother's death, but a nearby alchemy apprentice interrupted his thoughts. Hey, have you heard about the Golden Ivory Tower's summer headmaster appointment? The summer headmaster? Of course, it's Higgins Salma again. I heard Professor Saijan's research funding this month is exploding. Well, makes sense. He's the leading authority on regenerative potions. After all, the two discussed the next headmaster, who was Rodeline's former teacher. By now, Rodeline was seething with rage. His fists clenched, his body trembling. Aylett knew their conversation had dredged up painful memories for her father. After all, the regenerative potion formula was one of his creations. Aylett racked her brain for a way to comfort him. Prinz, however, spoke up. Dad, are you okay? Faced with his son's concern, Rodeline snapped out of his reverie. Forcing a smile, he said, I'm fine. Eat up. Your ice cream is melting. What are we talking about? Oh, right. Your mother didn't like this kind of dessert. Aylett rested her chin in her hand, listening intently to her parents' sweet reminiscences, but knowing deep down that her father probably didn't want to be back here. But seeing the smile on his face, she couldn't help but marvel at the power of love. So, Mom never had even one bite? Prince's sudden question made Rodeline's eyes redden instantly. Unsure how to explain, he deflected, saying he'd tell them when they were 18. After all, it wasn't something for little kids. Dad, I want to see the little house where you and Mom live. Aylett interjected, thankfully breaking the tension. As the sun began to set, a dilapidated house came into view. The three of them stared, dumbfounded. They couldn't believe the house that held such precious memories looked like something out of a horror story. To spare their father further embarrassment, the two children hurried off to give the house a surprise makeover. The thud of buckets hitting the ground echoed in the air. Rodeline was exhausted and just wanted to rest. Aylett and Prinz, however, were full of energy, fueled by the stamina boost from their sword aura package. We're almost done cleaning, Dad. Why don't you rest for a while? Aylett called out as she ran off. As she walked, she felt a nagging sense of unease. Her task wasn't quite finished. Checking her map, she noticed an unexplored area nearby. A thoughtful expression crossed Aylett's face. She suspected something was amiss. Under the cover of darkness, she quietly set out to investigate. Clad in her pajamas, Aylett felt confident. She quickly reached the suspicious location and gasped in surprise. The moonlit lake shimmered before her. Aylett was bewildered. What she thought was a beautiful lakeside view was actually a massive crater. As the water gurgled, Aylett rolled up her pajama pants and prepared to investigate further. A swirling portal appeared before her, leaving her stunned. It seemed the crater was the aftermath of a dungeon break. Someone had acted swiftly at the moment of the dungeon break, preventing the surrounding villages from being devastated. Aylett gulped nervously. A dungeon break meant monsters and evil spirits pouring out from the depths. Even the lowest level dungeon, upon breaking, could become the highest level. If left unchecked, the entire continent could be reduced to ruins. But that's strange. No one seems to be managing this dungeon. Usually, there are casualties when a dungeon breaks. But there isn't even a memorial here. That means either the raiding party that stopped the break was completely wiped out, and their heroism went unrecorded. Aylett shivered as a sense of foreboding washed over her. A divine being, a judge of souls, questioned the flame's spirit. The creation flame's spirit hastily explained, saying it was just a small, C-rank dungeon, and the records showed no one had claimed the items within. Aylett propped her chin on her hand, lost in thought. Aylett, I have a favor to ask. The sudden request interrupted her thoughts. Could you help retrieve the bodies of the raiding party? Thinking about them sacrificing themselves to stop the dungeon break, I feel a connection to them. Aylett hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. She knew of Agnes's past, a weight that shadowed her gaze as she turned towards the rippling sound of the lake. All right, Agnes, Aylett said. I'll go and pay my respect to the lost souls. Agnes was immediately overcome with gratitude, expressing her thanks to the young girl. Watching the would-be victor depart, Agnes couldn't shake the feeling that despite the avarice that often flickered in Aylett's eyes, the child possessed a kind heart. Just then, Aylett leaped high into the air. A free S-rank item? Don't mind if I do. Her voice echoed across the sky as she descended towards the dungeon. Agnes felt as if struck by lightning. Her eyes widened in disbelief. The air hung thick with yellow sand. With a single stroke, the 3-year-old girl felled the wretch before her. Her physical strength had grown considerably. The instructor, pleased with Alet's progress, urged her onward. The desert stretched before, seemingly endless. Despite her apprehension, the lure of the item filled her with courage. What's this? A fossil? Alet wondered aloud. Agnes, equally surprised, ventured, it appears to be a dragon's rib. Judging by the spiritual residue, it must have been slain over 100 years ago. Alet quickly consulted her system, realizing that time within the dungeon flowed at least 20 times faster than in the real world. Agnes's expression sharpened, her thoughts unreadable. Alet urgently called out to her instructor, urging him to search for the raiding party. The sandstorm intensified. Alet's small frame was no match for the swirling sand. We should go back, the instructor pleaded. If we get lost in this storm, we'll never find our way home. But Alet was undeterred. She had to cheat, after all. With a ding-dong, she opened her system map, confident that even without clear vision, she could reach her destination. Just as she charged forward, brimming with energy, she tripped and fell face first into the sand. Alet, are you all right? You need to watch where you're going. Alet, speechless, could only groan. Suddenly, the sand dune beside her shifted ominously. Alet whipped around to see a sand-covered figure lying on the ground. Hesperil, the Duke of the Hesperil Duchy. Grandpa, are you okay? Wake up! To Alet's calls, the weakened Hesperil mumbled incoherently. Then, with a sudden surge of strength, he roared, 2.5 months without food. My perfect muscles are going to waste. Alet and Agnes stood dumbfounded. Unsure what exactly Hesperil was, Alet rummaged through her bag. Grandpa, here, have a kick-the-bucket pill. Agnes gaped, wondering how the unconscious man could possibly swallow it. But as if driven by instinct, Hesperil swallowed the pill whole. Ah, a drink would be perfect, he rasped, regaining some strength. Preferably watermelon rind juice. After downing a few bottles of liquid, Hesperil sat up. I can finally open my eyes. Thank you. He trailed off, staring at Alet in bewilderment. Eltia, is that you, my daughter? Alet, confused, was suddenly pulled into a tight embrace. You're here. I've been searching for you for 2.5 months in this dungeon. Alet quickly explained that he had the wrong person. Agnes, exasperated, raised her fist. What? You're not Eltia? Looking at the young girl before him, Hesperil realized his mistake. I was mistaken, which means my daughter is still missing. He slumped, despair evident in his posture. Alet was thoroughly confused. But you can't survive 2.5 months without food. Hesperil nodded grimly. Yes, she's somewhere in this dungeon, but I was trapped by the storm. Alet interrupted him. Don't worry, Grandpa. I know the way. I'll take you somewhere safe. Leave it to me. Looking at the confident young girl, Hesperil was reminded of his own daughter, who had often spoken with the same unwavering assurance. A faint smile touched his lips. Without waiting for Alet's response, he scooped her up. You're quite remarkable for your age, but you're so small. How can you possibly navigate this storm? You point the way, and Grandpa will carry you out. With that, he started off at a run, Alet squealing in his arms. Whoa, you're so fast. Grandpa, you must have been super popular back in the day. Hesperil, listening to Alet's excited chatter, wore a pained expression. Alet had a firm grip on his hair, a very firm grip. Ouch, don't pull, little one. You're going to rip my hair out. Alet quickly apologized, but with the unwavering conviction that with hair as thick as his, losing a few strands wouldn't matter. Amidst their laughter and banter, they cleared the sandstorm. They arrived at their destination. Gazing at the dilapidated palace, neither knew quite how to express their feelings. Setting Alet down, Hesperil thanked her and double-checked if she truly wanted to go inside with him. Though the boss monster had been vanquished, the place was still fraught with danger. Alet, however, was resolute, declining his well-meaning offer. After all, her goals were to retrieve the S-rank item and locate the bodies of the raiding party. Though harboring doubts, Hesperil didn't press the matter. He entered the ruined dwelling with Alet. The 10-year-old girl's heart was filled with an almost overwhelming ambition. Driven by the desire for the S-rank item, she ventured into the dangerous depths. Unexpectedly, she stumbled upon a large man collapsed on the ground. She quickly revived him. Learning that the man was searching for his daughter, the two immediately set off together towards the boss monster's lair. Along the way, Hesperil asked Alet why she was there, suggesting that her mother must be worried. But Alet revealed that her mother had left home when she was 2.5. Hesperil was taken aback and quickly apologized. Elet seemed unfazed, simply asking why his daughter had left him. Hesperil hesitated, unsure how to answer. Finally, he explained. In his 20s, he had deeply loved a commoner girl, but his family's disapproval forced them apart. Years later, he received news of her death. He also learned that she had been pregnant when they separated. Hesperil immediately began searching for their child. After 2.5 years, he finally found her. Looking at his dirty, neglected daughter, Hesperil resolved to give her the best of everything, a life of respect and privilege. However, bringing Althea home meant subjecting her to the rigorous education of the nobility. No matter how hard 8-year-old Althea tried, she couldn't absorb the vast amount of knowledge. Hesperil, not a particularly attentive father, was unconcerned with her struggles. He only wanted her to quickly become a proper noblewoman. He dismissed Althea's promises to study hard and become an excellent noblewoman. He even forbade her from calling him father in front of the servants. Elet was appalled, filled with disdain for his callous behavior. Though Hesperil deeply regretted his past actions, he continued his story with a heavy heart. One morning, a young girl calling herself Alyssa arrived at his estate, claiming to be his true daughter. She even knew details about the deceased woman that only his real daughter could know. The orphanage and her guardian provided supporting evidence. The girl's striking resemblance to the deceased woman led Hesperil to dote on her excessively. Althea witnessed all of this. Years later, the now-grown Alyssa sought out Althea, informing her that their father had chosen her as the heir and would be sending Althea away. A stricken Althea confronted Hesperil, asking if he was abandoning her. Hesperil, enraged, told her to stop dwelling on such things. Althea was left speechless. Clenching her fists, Althea realized she would never meet her father's expectations. That's why he had chosen the other girl, the one more to his liking. She turned and left without a word, ignoring Hesperil's enraged shouts. Hesperil hadn't meant to abandon Althea. He had only placed such immense pressure on her because he saw her as the family heir. It was only after Althea left that he discovered Elsa, the girl he'd chosen, was only after his family's fortune. Elet, empathizing with Althea's plight, was stunned. Anyone would have left under those circumstances. Furious, she ignored Hesperil's lamentations. Suddenly, Elet stopped dead in her tracks. Before them stood a dilapidated palace, radiating an eerie aura. The surrounding wraiths seemed fixated on the palace. Elet, already bewildered, grew even more confused. Hesperil, his face pale, walked forward and witnessed a horrifying sight. A woman, holding a hoe, knelt on one knee. Her body, like the wraiths, seemed partially absorbed into the palace walls. Hesperil rushed towards her. He embraced Althea's petrified form, sobbing and begging her not to leave him. Elet approached Hesperil. She saw something extraordinary. It reminded her of her brother's description of their mother's departure. Staring at the hoe and a pear in the woman's hand, Elet was dumbfounded. "Oh my God," she whispered. The girl had come to the Wraith's domain hoping to snag an S-rank item for free. Instead, she'd stumbled upon her mother. The petrified woman stared blankly while Elet, beside her, seemed to be experiencing a sudden bout of mistaken identity. When my mom left home, Elet explained, she took a hoe and a pear. She left in her nightgown while we were sleeping. And this woman, she fits the description perfectly. Elet was in disbelief. Suddenly, she was lifted into the air. "I have a granddaughter." It was Hesperil, overcome with a mixture of joy and embarrassment. He hugged Elet tightly. Elet, uncomfortable with this sudden display of affection from her newly discovered grandfather, frantically urged him to calm down. Saving her mother was the priority. Examining the woman, Elet found no fatal wounds. She looked up. A giant, eerie eye gazed down upon them, observing all of creation, even the deity within that I felt a sharp sting. Elet remained undeterred. If she could just break the petrification, her mother would live again. Hesperil, startled, placed Elet gently on the ground. "Grandpa," she said, "no matter what happens next, please keep it a secret." Hesperil quickly agreed. Elet didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, closed her eyes, and invoked divine descent. Bathed in holy light, the white-haired girl radiated purity. She took the opportunity to proselytize to her grandfather. "After I save my mother," she declared. I hope you'll keep my God in your heart for the rest of your life. Hesperel, sweating nervously, agreed. Aylett, without further delay, cast omnipotent evolutionary baptism. The petrified Althea was enveloped in holy light, the spell that bound her broken. Hesperel, witnessing this miracle, was awestruck. He pledged his faith to Aylett's God. Just as Aylett was about to celebrate her victory, Althea stirred. Tui, Tui, she sputtered. So salty. Seeing her mother's disgusted expression, Aylett froze in horror. Althea then noticed the girl before her. Recognizing her daughter, she grabbed her. Aylett, my little Aylett, you've grown so much. Why is your hair white? She sobbed, lamenting that she had missed her daughter's childhood. She asked Aylett how old she was. Aylett, bewildered, held up 10 fingers. Althea's face crumpled. 10 years old? It's been 6 years. This is insane. How could something so painful and shocking happen? A string of censored expletives followed, leaving Aylett even more bewildered. She couldn't believe this vulgar woman was her mother. But just then, Aylett was pulled into Althea's embrace, held tightly. I'm sorry, my darling. I shouldn't have left you. All these years without me. Were you lonely? Were you sad? Did you miss me terribly? The sudden barrage of questions left Aylett speechless. In both her lives, she had never experienced a mother's love, a mother's embrace. Faced with Althea's embrace, Aylett's eyes welled up, tears streaming down her face. She clung to her desperately. Althea, desperate not to lose her again, asked, Why aren't you saying anything? You look so pale. To her mother's inquiries, Aylett could only stammer apologies, explaining that she'd lost her memories. Althea didn't doubt her. After all, Aylett was just a baby when she disappeared. Still, she longed to hear her daughter call her mother. Aylett looked at Althea, at her mother, and buried her head in her embrace. Though Aylett possessed the mind of someone far older, she still yearned for a mother. Just then, Hesperel, standing off to the side, called out to his daughter with a hesitant and uncertain voice, shattering the tender moment. Althea froze, staring at the tearful, burly man before her, unsure what to make of him. It's me. It's your dad. I missed you so much, my daughter. Althea stared back, bewildered. His next words hit her like a thunderbolt. Who are you? I don't have a father. Hesperel felt a chilling wind pierce his heart. Aylett, her face flushed, also felt a chill. Hesperel desperately tried to reach his daughter. Althea, it's me, your dad. You can call me father if you want to be formal, or daddy if you want to be sweet. But I don't have a dad, or a father, or a daddy, she replied. She was the Duke's daughter, but due to her father's strictness and suspicion, she left her wealthy home and married an alchemist. She bore a son and a daughter. Upon learning of the Wraith's attack, she grabbed a hoe, braving the elements, and ventured alone into the Wraith's domain. Ultimately, she was no match for them and was petrified. When she opened her eyes again, she found that her daughter had saved her. She immediately embraced her, pouring out her emotions. Her father had also come along. Looking at the tearful man, Althea was hesitant, unsure what to make of him. Hesperel burst into tears, insisting he was her father, her daddy. Althea's heart had long been broken by him. She refused to acknowledge him as her father. Althea, come home. I'll give you the title immediately. Althea didn't believe him. No, that's not my home. And you've already found your real daughter. Give the title to her. Hesperel was heartbroken. He tried to explain that it was all a plot against him, but Althea refused to listen, turning her head away. In desperation, Hesperel grabbed her arm, enraging Althea. She lifted him up and flung him like a skipping stone against the nearby wall. Aylett watched in terror as her mother, like a raging beast, effortlessly tossed Hesperel's 250-kilogram body aside. Genesis' flame tomb whispered to her not to anger her mother. Suddenly, Althea gasped. She had used too much force, and the dilapidated wall crumbled and began to collapse. Aylett's face was a mask of shock. Althea tried to save her daughter, but it was too late. As the stones crashed down, a massive figure shielded them both. Father, why were you so reckless? Are you all right? Hesperel, concerned by his daughter's worry, insisted he was fine. Compared to the pain he had caused her, this was nothing. Althea stared at her father in stunned silence as Hesperel suddenly dropped to his knees. I was so eager for you to become a worthy heir that I was too harsh, too strict. I was never a good father to you. I even hurt you. I'm so sorry. I've been a terrible father. I never knew how to love my own daughter. Please, give me another chance. Let me learn how to love you. Althea's eyes were already brimming with tears, but she fought back her sorrow, turning her head away from her father. Ailette, seeing the redness in her mother's eyes, knew that Althea couldn't bring herself to be truly cruel. Understanding the need to ease the tension, Ailette decided to intervene. "Mama, I want to see Grandpa again." Hearing Ailette pleading her case, Hesperil seized the opportunity. "Why don't you and your husband come back to the Duke's estate?" he invited. "No, I won't bring them there. That place suffocates me. I don't intend to inherit the family title. Life away from the family has been much more beautiful." Hesperil's face was etched with sorrow at Althea's harsh words. He was at a loss for how to persuade his daughter. But Althea wasn't entirely heartless. "Since Ailette is speaking up for you, I suppose I can consider it. I might bring her to see you occasionally. So please get up." Hesperil, incredulous, looked quickly at his daughter. He jumped up excitedly. "Really? Wonderful. How about once a month? No, twice a year? No. Even once a year would be fine. How about the autumn harvest Thanksgiving? It's a day for family reunions. We can have a meal together. I really miss the 7-colored Wukuan meat." Faced with her father's erratic enthusiasm, Althea just wanted to escape. Then she remembered something. Turning a serious gaze on Hesperil, she said, "Before that, could you help me teach a bad person a lesson? It's Viscount Martin of West Kingsale." Ella was still getting used to the idea that this woman was her mother, and her blunt words were a little jarring. "That guy's a despicable scoundrel who tormented and exploited my husband." As Hesperil was about to agree, seeing his daughter's fury, Ailette chimed in, adding to the list of Viscount Martin's misdeeds. "Mama, not only that, but he also stole Papa's achievements and drove him out. That's why we've had such a hard time." Althea's face hardened, ready to send Viscount Martin to the hereafter. Hesperil, frantic, swore on his family's honor. "I will absolutely avenge you both." Althea, however, didn't trust her father. "Of course, I will absolutely, in the name of justice, judge that dramatic Satan." After she finished speaking, Hesperil was completely bewildered. He hadn't even remembered Viscount Martin's name correctly. Althea burst out laughing. Ailette, watching them, was happy that their relationship seemed to be thawing. Then she remembered something and asked her grandfather his name. Hesperil puffed up with pride. "I am Alan Jack Hesperil." Ailette was stunned. In the original story, Hesperil was incredibly powerful. Before the protagonist's 40th rebirth, he had consistently held the top rank on the continent. Realizing who he was, Ailette felt like she had stumbled into a classic romantic fantasy trope. Hearing his granddaughter muttering about dukes, Hesperil sensed an opportunity. "I think Ailette might really like it at the Duke's estate. So, would you reconsider the inheritance?" But Ailette declined her grandfather's offer. "Honestly, I'm a little, very extremely interested in the position of Duchess. But I'll respect Mama's decision. If she doesn't want it, neither do I." Hearing Ailette's words, the contrast between the two was stark. Althea pulled Ailette closer, about to praise her daughter, when she noticed something alarming. Ailette was burning up, on the verge of collapsing. Panicked, Althea tried to take Ailette outside, but Ailette grabbed her arm. "Don't worry, Mama. I've just got a temporary case of the crazies. I'll be better in 2.5 days." She asked to stay in the dungeon until then, not wanting her father and Bientao to worry. She made them promise to keep today's events a secret. As her vision blurred, Ailette fell into a deep sleep. "I don't know how to continue the story from here. This is hard work. Give me some motivation." Impatient viewers can check the comment section. Although the girl possesses powerful holy power, her past life wasn't happy or beautiful. Every night, she'd be plagued by unpleasant memories of her previous existence. Her parents died young, leaving the young girl to be raised by her uncle. But her cousin would always team up with friends to bully her. The despairing girl, Ailette, just wanted a marshmallow to soothe her heart. But the blonde-haired boy beside her declared it junk food, insisting that she eat something more substantial and protein-rich, like rainbow kuan meat. Looking at the blonde boy, Ailette was startled to see him transform into her grandfather. A wave of surprised joy washed over her. Her grandfather leaned in, his face etched with concern. "Little one, you're awake. How are you feeling?" The sudden attention made Ailette bristle. A shriek ripped through the quiet night. The outburst stunned the old man into silence. Seeing Ailette awake, Althea, her mother, burst into tears of relief. She quickly placed a hand on Ailette's forehead, as if checking for a fever. Ailette, still groggy, looked around in confusion, unsure of where she was. You've been unconscious for 2.5 days. We were about to close the dungeon and go back. Hesperil, her father, exclaimed. Your mother has been crying her eyes out worrying about you. Look, they're all swollen. Althea protested at Hesperil's dramatic pronouncements, arguing that they only made Ilette more anxious. Were you worried about me? Ilette asked, stunned by this display of familial concern. Althea pulled her daughter into a tight embrace. Of course, my darling. How could I not be worried when you're ill? I'm so glad you're all right. Although the recent nightmare had left Ilette shaken, her mother's warmth chased away the lingering shadows. Just then, the sound of Ilette's father and brother calling her name echoed from a distance. Althea and Ilette exchanged surprised glances. It's father and my brother. They must have noticed I'm gone and are worried, Ilette realized. As Ilette ran towards the voices, Althea watched, a bittersweet sadness washing over her, uncertain how to face the impending reunion. She then glanced back at Hesperil. Hesperil gazed silently after his daughter. Though his heart ached with longing, he knew he had to leave. Well then, I'll see you at the autumn harvest Thanksgiving. Take care of yourself, he said, his voice heavy with unspoken emotion. The sight of her father's aging form stirred a tenderness within Althea. Hesperil, hearing her unspoken agreement, finally allowed a small smile to grace his lips. Suddenly, Ilette's head popped out from behind a nearby bush. Both Althea and Hesperil noticed her immediately. They rushed toward her. Where were you? Do you know how worried we were? Hesperil began, but then his eyes widened in disbelief as he spotted Althea. He stared, speechless, at the woman who held his most cherished memories. Althea, is it really you? Before he could finish, Althea threw herself into his arms, holding him tightly. I couldn't live a day without you. I would never abandon you. I was trapped in the dungeon, unable to return home. I'm so sorry it took me so long. Hesperil gently cupped her face in his hands. Althea, none of that matters now. What matters is that you're back. I don't need anything else. Ilette watched her parents' affectionate display with wide eyes, wondering if she should discreetly excuse herself. Perhaps she should blindfold Prinz first. But her brother, oblivious to the moment, rushed forward and hugged their mother. Mother, I knew you'd come back. Althea embraced him tightly. Prinz, my sweet boy. Mother is all right. Thank you for growing into such a mature and understanding young man. Watching her brother sob, Ilette couldn't help but think that this mature and understanding young man was being rather loud. Her mother's voice interrupted her thoughts. Ilette, come here too. Ilette, her face beaming, joined the embrace. After 7 long years, the family was finally reunited. Hesperil, the Duke, possessed the greatest fighting prowess on the continent. Yet, he had dedicated himself to searching for his missing daughter. Though he had found traces of her, she harbored a deep resentment towards him, hoping to mend their fractured relationship. Hesperil returned to the Duke's estate to address matters his daughter had entrusted to him. Meanwhile, back at Ilette's home, she picked up a newspaper and let out a sinister chuckle. The headline proclaimed the imprisonment of Viscount Martin. Ilette was immensely satisfied with her grandfather's efficiency. She playfully mimed a high five in his direction. Then, she hurried to her father with the good news. Papa, look at the paper. That bloodsucker, he's completely, utterly, spectacularly finished. Hesperil, however, seemed unconcerned by Viscount Martin's downfall. He merely smiled at his daughter and glanced out the window. This left Ilette momentarily perplexed. Outside, Althea was teaching their son, Prinz, swordsmanship. The memory played vividly in Hesperil's mind. Perhaps the reunion of his family was all a man truly sought in life. Watching her father's face, radiant with happiness, Ilette felt a deep, understanding bloom within her. She reflected on the recent events. Bianca, ever the loyal best friend, had wasted no time upon their return. She convinced her father to grant them their own parcel of land. And Althea, with her formidable sword saint abilities, had replaced the Countess's former night guard. She had even become close friends with the notoriously picky Countess. Ilette's affection for the younger girl deepened with every passing day. Just then, Althea came to the window, asking what they were doing. Hesperil didn't answer. He simply picked up a glass and offered it to her. But the next moment, Althea leaned in close, catching a whiff of chrysanthemum. Flustered by his wife's sudden nearness, Hesperil darted back into the room, claiming he needed to fetch a drink. Watching her father's hasty retreat, Ilette couldn't help but find his excuse a little flimsy. Althea, meanwhile, bent down, rummaging for something. When she placed the object in Ilette's hand, it instantly wiped the smile from her face. Just as Alette was about to examine it, the once familiar saintess suddenly emerged from the necklace, her face etched with surprise. The object in Alette's hand was the very trophy she had intended to acquire. Alette was bewildered. How did her mother have this? But before she could ask, the aftereffects of using divine descent struck again. She succumbed to the familiar delirium and lost consciousness. "Mama, can I keep this?" Althea gave her daughter an affirmative nod, then gently took her small hand. "These calluses, you haven't just been studying alchemy, have you? You've been secretly practicing weapon skills. These marks tell a story. You've trained with a skilled, experienced master for at least 2.5 months. You deserve this gift." Stunned by her mother's astute observation, Alette could only stare. Agnes, too, was dumbfounded. "She's amazing. Is she a goddess or something?" Althea, oblivious to their odd whispers, explained that this was a belated birthday gift, the first of 6. Alette, however, insisted that this one was more than enough. Touched by her daughter's thoughtfulness, Althea beamed, promising another surprise at their picnic later. But then, a dark, ominous-looking object, radiating a disturbing aura, appeared. Alette and Prince froze aghast. Could this truly be the surprise her mother had spoken of? "Mama, is this lump of charcoal from hell your gift? Is it some rare alchemical ingredient? But you took it out of the picnic basket." Althea, mortified by their horrified reactions, explained, "It's a treat I made. It's called fairy cotton." The words triggered a memory in Alette, a dream she'd had a few days prior. She realized her mother must have overheard her sleep-talking. Embarrassed, she lowered her head, a warm feeling of affection enveloping her. Just as Althea reached for the blackened confection, intending to discard it, Alette snatched it from her hand. "I want to eat it. I really want to try it," she declared, poking the dark fairy cotton. She popped a piece into her mouth, praising her mother's culinary creation, a happy tear glistening in the corner of her eye. As the family enjoyed their afternoon tea far away in Shenano, a wraith fell to its knees before its master, reporting on Rodrigo and Becca. The sudden appearance of divine power in this godforsaken world, decimating his forces, had infuriated the demon king, Carpios. He glared down at his underling. "I'm curious," he sneered. "Why are the established boundaries and order behaving so erratically? Find out. Now, what is that tour executive?" The little girl gradually grew into a young woman. During this time, their family was devoted to being together. To gain great power, he prayed 1,000 times a day. Finally, the gods were moved. An awakening no longer relied on divine descent. As he slowly landed, he intensely felt the energy within his body. Even the gods came to offer congratulations. Agnes affirmed his efforts. But in the next second, Alette suddenly turned goofy. She pulled out her backpack and took out all her gold coins. Then, under Agnes's astonished gaze, she summoned the Genesis Flame Tomb. She topped up with 100 million in cash, preparing to use the power of microtransactions. As the shop opened, Alette didn't hesitate. Clicking wherever she didn't understand, her mother wouldn't have to worry about her studies anymore. There was no need to doubt Alette's superpower. As the sound of decreasing cash rang out, the young woman danced, feeling the exhilaration brought by her spending. Then, confidently, she lifted her clothes and cast a healing spell. But the result was underwhelming. Compared to the effect when she transformed into white-haired Alette, it wasn't on the same level at all. It was a bit of a pity. These skills still needed her to level up step by step. Then, she clenched her fists, preparing to hone her skills steadily, cheering herself on. The next second, however, Agnes hesitantly asked her how she planned to practice healing. She couldn't just stab herself and then heal, could she? Alette was instantly deflated and speechless. Meanwhile, in the Holy Emperor's Hall, news of Alette reaching Saintess level had arrived. Looking at the holy light above, so dazzling and brilliant for his own benefit, the bearded man, seeing that there had been no news of the Saintess for so long, prepared to send his relatives to search for her. As the noisy discussion filled the hall, Carpios was already consumed by loathing. He turned to go back. When he reached his bedroom door, a voice sounded behind him. It was Taishalit. This time, he came to find Carpios solely for news of Alette. Though puzzled as to why he would inquire about Alette, Carpios still told the young man everything he knew. He explained that in 2.5 years, Alette had become a graceful young woman and was living happily. Although he didn't get much useful information, Taishalit was still very satisfied. After expressing his gratitude to Carpios, he strode forward, preparing to undertake his outbound trial. Meanwhile, Lo was sitting glumly at the door, watching her parents fussing over Prinz, warning him to be careful when he went out. Her brother had now completely changed, becoming a graceful, pink-haired young man. Although she felt a little sad, she understood that her brother wanted to gain great power. He had no choice but to study at the Night Academy. After all, Prinz couldn't gain great power through microtransactions. Seeing that his sister hadn't come to see him off, Prinz smiled and came to her, saying goodbye. Cupping her face in her hands, Elette urged her brother to be sure to take the potion she had sent him secretly. Just as Prinz smiled and stroked Elette's head, saying he had remembered a young nobleman barely making an appearance, angrily and impatiently urged Prinz to hurry up. "Hey kid, no, young master, why are you going with him too? Even if he enrolls, he won't graduate anyway." Prinz, awkwardly unsure how to respond to his sister's words, simply bid farewell. Elette thankfully responded, and in the original storyline, Rambio's knighthood was revoked, but now, influenced by Prinz, he volunteered to study. Watching their departing figures, Elette thought maliciously he should experience more of the world. Then her mother quietly approached her. She softly asked Elette if she wanted to go too. She could ask her grandfather to send her there. Elette, upon hearing this, broke out in a cold sweat and refused her mother's kind offer. Full of energy, she flexed her biceps, declaring that she could also train well in the Earl City. Besides, she had Bianca to keep her company. But in the next moment, Bianca betrayed her. She was preparing to leave for the capital to study administration. Elette stared at her best friend, dumbfounded. Though saddened by her departure, Elette knew she couldn't change Bianca's decision. Thinking about the Winchester king and how the issue of succession would soon pit the princes and princesses against each other, with nobles vying for power in the shadows, Elette couldn't help but worry about her delicate friend's safety. She quickly took Bianca's hand in hers, urgently telling her what to watch out for in the capital. The first prince was two-faced, the third prince had a chest fixation and couldn't be provoked, and the first princess had a fondness for young maidens. As she spoke, Elette pulled out a charm that enhanced attractiveness, something she'd just bought from the system shop. Under Bianca's surprised gaze, she fastened it to her hair. Elette declared delightedly that it suited her perfectly. "Thank you, Elette, but having you is enough." Looking at her best friend, radiant like a spring flower, Elette felt a sudden burst of holy light threatening to blind her. Her brother, Prinz, and Bianca then left the Duke's estate. Elette wasn't discouraged. Clenching her fists, she resolved to train even harder. As time slowly passed, in her secret domain, Elette diligently honed her skills. The next moment, a flurry of chrysanthemum petals erupted, scattering across the sky. Elette was stunned, unable to believe she had just unleashed sword energy. After receiving Agnes's confirmation, confirming that she had indeed attained the strength of a sword saint, Elette felt a surge of genuine joy. Years of effort had finally paid off. The system then notified her of an impending major upgrade. After 2.5 years of training, the young girl had finally achieved the power of a sword saint. Upon learning this news, the former saintess commended her. After all, not everyone could persevere through running 250 kilometers every day. Moreover, Elette was only 12.5 years old. Although, with her current strength, fighting monsters was like slicing through watermelons, she still requested her instructor to give her some motivation. Though surprised, Agnes used her signature move. Elette, in turn, showered her with praise and asked to be taught the technique. "You're so well behaved and you speak so sweetly. But if you want to reach my level, you'll need to train even harder." Elette wasn't discouraged, declaring her unwavering determination. As the two discussed swordsmanship, the Genesis Flame Tomb system finished its upgrade. It arrived, pulling a banner to congratulate Elette, leaving Agnes utterly speechless. After all, she had always been the sole deity Elette served. Elette immediately protested, forbidding Agnes from referring to her system as her father. Agnes relented, dropping the subject. Then, she considered Elette's next step, training in the dungeons. However, this would be difficult at the Earl's mansion. Elette, listening, was also unsure what to do. Just then, the Genesis Flame Tomb suddenly appeared, prompting her to look up. Seeing the system update notification, Elette's spirits revived. She reassured Agnes not to worry, as the Genesis Flame Tomb had already prepared a training ground for her. She was practically in tears over the Flame Tomb's willingness to fulfill her every request. Meanwhile, in the Holy Emperor's Hall, the elders were puzzled by the saintess causing a commotion every few days, while they remained in the dark. Elzent, the leader of the search party, was drenched in cold sweat, unsure how to respond to their questioning. After the elders left the hall, a troubled Elzent pondered how to find the Saintess. He unexpectedly bumped into Taishalit. Looking at his younger half-brother, Taishalit showed no concern for his numerous scars. He was about to leave impatiently, but remembering that Elzent was the saint's vessel brought by their father, he paused. He inquired if the young man was encountering difficulties with his mission. The scars on Taishalit's face were answer enough. After all, the Holy Emperor's Hall merely treated them as tools, indifferent to their lives. To add insult to injury, due to Taishalit's perceived lack of strength, the Holy Emperor's Hall hadn't bothered to assign him any companions. Though harboring resentment, Taishalit dared not show it. Elzent, sensing his apprehension, decided not to engage further. After offering a few words of comfort, he too left the hall. Taishalit's doubts lingered, finding no suitable outlet for expression. He hesitated to speak. The mere mention of the matter at the Holy Emperor's Hall had struck a nerve, touching upon a sensitive subject. Back at the Duke's estate, Alette tightened her shoelaces. Clutching the oroba her mother had given her, she prepared to enter the chain tower. A whirlwind enveloped the young woman, and with a whoosh, she arrived. Gazing at the unique surroundings, Alette couldn't help but appreciate the system's attention to detail. A sign forbidding the use of divine descent instantly eased her nerves. Still, she raised her familiar weapon, refusing to let her guard down, ready to face the upcoming evil spirits. Her gaze was serious as her opponent slowly materialized, but in the next second, a soft, chirping sound escaped it. Green slime jiggled on its body, making it appear incredibly cute. Agnes instantly felt the urge to scoop it up in her arms. But Alette wasn't swayed by its adorable appearance. Assuming an attack stance, she leaped high into the air. Her sword came down in a swift arc. The green slime creature burst, splattering across the ground. Agnes playfully scolded Alette for her ruthlessness, but Alette paid no mind to such comments. Her eyes gleamed, focused solely on the spoils. Looking at the stairs leading to the second floor, having gained a sense of the evil spirit's strength, Alette didn't hesitate. She quickly ascended. The boss of the second floor was no match for Alette, swiftly crushed upon its appearance. Nor could the bosses of the third and fourth floors stand against the powerful young woman. Reaching the 15th floor, she faced a horde of zombies. Alette's excitement bordered on frenzy. The zombies froze, bewildered by the girl's lack of fear. Then, they scrambled to escape. Perfect. I can really level up my healing skills here. Zombie darlings, where are you going? I'm here to heal you. As the wails of the undead gradually subsided, Alette pulled out some food. She began to eat happily. Watching the girl munching away, Agnes couldn't help but comment on her appetite after just obliterating a horde of zombies. Alette remained unfazed. After all, to survive in this world, one needed a strong spirit and a full stomach. Having sated her hunger, Alette continued her ascent. After a week, Alette had cleared the first 100 floors. As she climbed the stairs to the 101st floor, she stopped abruptly, staring in disbelief at the scene before her. Having attained immense power, Zhang Xiaoyu didn't rest on his laurels. He trained relentlessly, striving to become even more formidable. Arriving at the training ground Yin Ling had prepared for him, he reached the 101st floor with the ease of slicing through a watermelon. The sight that greeted him left him utterly dumbfounded. Though puzzled by the battlefield's transformation into a peculiar ring, Alette didn't retreat. However, the prospect of reaching the summit filled her with a certain reluctance. As if answering her unspoken plea, the system, known for its responsiveness, caused the summit to erupt in a sudden explosion. Alette stared, bewildered. In the next instant, a rock hurtled towards her. Her eyes widened in alarm. With a cry, she braced for impact as the rock plummeted downwards. Thankfully, her reflexes were sharp. She narrowly dodged the attack. Just then, a strange red glow emanated from the smoke. As it cleared, the 101st floor's boss, Moffat, made a dramatic entrance. Alette gasped, fleeing through the forest, not daring to stay put. With a roar from the sky, Moffat unleashed a devastating palm strike from above. Alette barely managed to evade the attack, her heart pounding in her chest. With a twirling leap, he kept his eyes wide open. Alette, seeing this, immediately lunged forward with her sword, but he didn't react at all, leaving her feeling somewhat frustrated. How was she supposed to deal with this thing? The next moment, Elet landed heavily in the water. Agnes, through this practical demonstration, reminded her not to waste her energy. She urged Elet to observe her surroundings and look for the stone creature's weakness in order to deliver a fatal blow. Before Elet could respond, Moffat came flying over. However, upon reaching the water's edge, he hesitated to advance further. Elet observed this, but Moffat didn't give up on his attack. He lifted a stone and used his Q ability. In a flash, Elet sliced the stone cleanly in two and prepared to flee. Recalling how Moffat had paused at the water's edge, Elet instantly realized his weakness. She immediately asked Agnes how to attract the enemy's attention, but the former saintess, seemingly with malicious intent, suggested that Elet insult him and provoke his anger. Although she felt this method was somewhat questionable, Elet took a deep breath and shouted, "Hey, you piece of garbage! How are your mommy and daddy?" Agnes was completely dumbfounded by Elet's unorthodox tactic, questioning how a stone creature could possibly have parents. Unexpectedly, the mindless Moffat actually seemed to get angry, charging towards her without hesitation. Seeing this, Elet burst out laughing and rummaged through her belongings. Pulling out her whip, she lashed out without a moment's hesitation. The whip cracked across Moffat's face. Elet continued to taunt him. The next second, Moffat's eyes narrowed. Flames erupted around his body, and with a whoosh, he launched a surprise attack on the girl, narrowly dodging the blow. Elet, now airborne, flung her whip around a nearby branch and swung away. Landing lightly, the girl fled in a panic. As she ran, Agnes couldn't help but comment that Elet not only had a talent for greed, but also a remarkable knack for attracting hatred. But Elet had no time to respond. A beam of light slammed into her back, sending her flying and landing near the edge of cliff. Watching Moffat approach step by step, Elet ignored Agnes's warnings and gripped her sword. Just as Moffat's massive hand was about to descend, Elet raised her weapon with a look of triumph. Then she plunged it into the ground. The cliff began to crumble. Both Moffat and Elet were about to fall into the abyss. As the water below drew closer, Moffat, if he could speak, would surely have called Elet a lunatic. But in the next instant, Elet flung her whip out once more, wrapping it around a branch on the cliff face. Amidst Moffat's cries of anguish, Elet avoided plummeting into the chasm. With a splash, Moffat hit the water far below. Elet landed on the ground. Seeing that Moffat was no longer moving, she raised her sword without hesitation and plunged it deep into Moffat's eye. Elet had successfully cleared the 101st floor trial. She then collapsed, exhausted and unwilling to move. Meanwhile, in a dark dungeon, the elders of the Holy Emperor's Hall stood before a prison cell, interrogating the young man inside. Seeing Taishalad's silence, the elders decided not to waste their breath. They ordered their subordinates not to give him any food for 77 days. Taishalad remained remarkably calm. He had been imprisoned simply for refusing to deal with a group of people deemed heretics by the Holy Emperor's Hall. As the guards departed, his friends peeked in, ready to help him. Seeing the two suddenly appear before him, the previously calm young man, Taishalad, stood up excitedly, urging them to leave quickly. Ipel ignored him, pulling food and water from his pocket and offering it to Taishalad, suggesting he eat when he felt hungry. His friend's concern eased Taishalad's anxiety about being imprisoned. He looked at the young man inside the cell. Hestio, though still scowling, spoke up, warning Taishalad not to break the rules of the ceasefire again. He stressed the importance of obeying orders, especially those concerning the handling of the end, whatever that might be. He warned Taishalad that they were only making an example of him now. He might not be so lucky next time. Hearing his friend's warning, Taishalad lowered his head, his hand clenching into a fist. Just then, he thought of the young girl he had once met. His hand clenched into a fist. It was then that he thought of the young girl he had once met. In a flash, Taishalad lifted his head, under Ipel's surprised gaze. His eyes turned towards the back of the room, lost in thought. Whenever despair threatened to consume him, Elet's image would surface in his mind. Longing suddenly wrapped around Taishalad's heart. As time slowly passed, young Elet no longer relied on her father for everything. She urged him to spend more time with her mother, saying she needed to study. A blush crept onto the man's cheeks. Watching her father hurry away, Elet, who had just spoken of studying, slammed her book shut the next second, slung a pack over her shoulder, and prepared to leave home. The training she'd undergone had helped her grow. Even when facing bosses that demanded considerable effort, Elette didn't flinch. She was filled with courage and patience on her path to becoming stronger. Her various skills gradually improved, surpassing the average person's abilities. Time is perhaps the cheapest commodity in this world. After years of practice, the young girl had blossomed into a graceful young woman, and a powerful one at that. But her greedy nature remained. Even when the bosses were reduced to bones, she would take them back as gifts for her skeletal minions. Arriving at her territory, eager to present her gruesome gifts, Elette froze, staring at the scene before her in disbelief. "What in the world are you doing?" she demanded. The granddaughter of the esteemed duke, it seemed, couldn't shake her avarice. Not even monster bones were safe from her acquisitive nature. When she happily brought her trophies to her skeletal minions, she found them in a sorry state, on the verge of falling apart. Their overly enthusiastic work ethic had led to a spate of slipped discs and scattered bones. Elette, upon learning the cause, was dumbfounded. "Honestly," she sighed, "I told you not to push yourself so hard. Every day, it's a broken bone here, a chipped bone there, and you're always complaining about osteoporosis." With that, she pulled the bones of Morlon and Dragos from her bag and, using Europa as a welding torch, quickly repaired her minions. The two bashful skeletons wiggled their reattached hips and began to frolic. The other minions nervously approached Elette. The young woman had no choice but to have them queue up for bone replacements. Little Flame watched the scene enviously. "Doesn't the farm owner have any gifts for me?" he asked. The air grew still. Then Elette produced a gleaming, heart-shaped gift, nearly blinding Little Flame with its brilliance. "Blood fireworks. I'm so happy," he cried. After finishing her farm chores, Elette returned home, where her father called for her. The next moment, her expression shifted to one of surprise. "Big brother," she exclaimed. Prinz, with his shocking pink hair, was almost dazzlingly handsome. When the two went out to the grassy field to spar, Elette knocked off one of his accessories with a single move. Prinz wasn't discouraged by this. While giving her a brief overview, he told her the news about Taishalit. The news left Elette speechless for a long moment. Apparently, not long ago, a massive SG had appeared above Adarani. The dungeon synchronized with it, and the dungeon's fortress had actually fallen out of the entrance. Just as the falling fortress was about to crush Adarani, Taishalit appeared. With a single divinely powered engineering lance infused with sword energy, he shattered the falling fortress, preventing Adarani from being reduced to rubble. Although she knew Taishalit would grow stronger according to the plot, Elette couldn't help but feel a little nervous. And when Prinz mentioned that the Adarani merchants were demanding compensation from Taishalit, the indignant girl wanted to chop down those ungrateful wretches. Seeing his sister so angry, Prinz was about to say something more, but a voice calling his name came from not far away. He had no choice but to go. Before leaving, he mentioned that he had bought Elette a famous massage. Elette immediately thought of that shy Karlam, who felt embarrassed to accept things from others. She was very curious about what the boy was up to now, but before she turned 20, she couldn't leave the Earl's estate. Otherwise, she would encounter S-rank calamities outside. As time passed, Elette reached the 277th floor of the trial tower. She looked at the mocking figures, leaving both of them speechless. After all, the dragon's entrance was always so unoriginal. Then, she expectantly asked the skyscraper architect if they could give her some good weapons. She hadn't received any recommended items even after reaching the 200th floor. The architect shuddered at her words, but they still satisfied Elette's whim. A temporary trial tower quest appeared, Dragon Emperor Slayer. Difficulty, S rank. A special event prepared for those like you with a lucky charm. Defeat the boss and claim your reward as usual. Reward, item selection ticket for the boss's floor. Seeing this, Elette was instantly overjoyed. Then her greedy nature revealed itself. Even the ugly dragon looked handsome to her. Agnes was dumbfounded by her declaration of plunder. Looking at the gold coins beneath the dragon, Elette didn't hesitate. She drew her sword and charged. "All those gold coins are mine." The girl's strength was already 7th in the entire continent. But before completing the tutorial, she could perish at any moment, simply because this world was full of S-rank calamities. To save herself, she had to increase her strength as quickly as possible, leave the Earl's estate, and save the male lead, that little Karlam. As Alet slept, the Taishalid she yearned for was kneeling on the ground. The surrounding scene resembled hell. Look at the piles of bones in this valley. They're all the enders you killed. And you also disrupted the groundbreaking ceremony at the Demon King's Ridge. This is definitely a commendable feat. The Holy Emperor's Hall will be incredibly pleased to see your achievements. The kneeling Taishalid clutched his stinging arm, ignoring the Demon King's sarcasm. Now, tell us how it feels to be a hero. Spoiled child of strict order and boundaries. Taishalid raised his head in pain, his icy gaze sharp. I will kill you, Calpios. Faced with the boy's declaration, Calpios burst out laughing. Then by all means try. You silver-haired livestock. As he spoke, his body dispersed, vanishing before Taishalid's eyes. Listening to the Demon King's piercing laughter, Taishalid stared blankly at the surrounding corpses. A wave of regret washed over him, but the previous battle had exhausted him. Time never stopped, and the story continued to unfold. Alet welcomed her 10th autumn in this world. The beginning of the original story was only 6 months away. Now, Alet was facing a new challenge. To complete the novice trial as quickly as possible, she had spent 2.5 years adapting to the maritime environment, all to overcome the boss of the 298th floor, the cursed Windshill. Although Windshill at first glance looked like a beautiful mermaid, his lower body, however, was a monstrous, ravenous maw. Alet was nearly caught off guard by his sudden attack. She had almost been capsized. When the waves calmed, the young woman leaped into the air, her segmented blade flashing. She ensnared Windshill, binding his form tightly and unleashing a furious assault. Yet, the attack seemed to do little damage. Windshill effortlessly shrugged off the restraints, an air of nonchalance about him. Frustrated, Alet hopped back to her small boat, narrowly avoiding Windshill's pursuing attack. With a resounding crack, the little boat splintered beneath the force of the blow, scattering debris across the water. Alet, thankfully, reacted quickly, escaping with minimal harm. She racked her brain, trying to figure out how to defeat this watery specter. If only I could use divine descent, she thought desperately. Suddenly, an idea sparked. Scrambling onto a piece of floating wreckage, she braced herself as Windshill attacked again. A towering wave, like a crashing tsunami, surged towards her. As the churning water subsided, Windshill, a smug grin playing on his lips, turned to leave, only to find, to his astonishment, that Alet had not been obliterated. She had deployed her ultimate skill, Mercury Barrier. How about this, little missy? She called out. From now on, this arena is my castle. Windshill roared in fury, the surrounding seawater swirling around him, taking the shape of a colossal water dragon. Alet charged forward, leaping high into the air, a Valkyrie descending upon the battlefield. As Windshill's form finally dissipated, dissolving into motes of light, Alet claimed her prize, her first boss drop. The architect, still reeling from his heartbreak, was stunned that the girl had single-handedly defeated Agnes, the formidable 298th floor boss. He couldn't help but acknowledge her impressive strength. He was utterly dumbfounded. He'd never imagined Alet could clear the 298th floor so quickly. He tried to reason with her, pointing out that she was already the 7th strongest on the continent and didn't need to push herself so hard. But Alet was having none of it. Without a moment's hesitation, she marched towards the next level. The architect trembled, silently pleading with her to wait at least a month before attempting the 299th floor. Alet, sensing his apprehension, was immediately suspicious. What's wrong? She demanded, her eyes narrowing. The architect, flustered, tried to play dumb. Unsatisfied with his evasiveness, Alet decided to press the issue no further. She approached the entrance to the 299th floor, a triumphant grin on her face. Ignoring the architect's silent, panicked howls, she initiated the teleportation sequence. But something felt off. This wasn't the familiar loading sensation of the trial tower. Could this be? She wondered, a flicker of unease rising within her. Is this the beginner's trial transfer? Driven by her relentless determination, she pressed onward. But when she opened her eyes, she realized she'd been tricked. A system message flashed before her. You have entered a level 5 difficulty dungeon, Slime Breeding Grounds. Just moments ago, Alet had vanquished the 298th floor boss and was preparing to ascend to the next level. Unbeknownst to her, the trial tower, updated 7 years prior, was unfinished. Alet's relentless, almost superhuman progress had completely blindsided the heartbroken architect. He'd never anticipated that someone could reach the 300th floor in a mere 7 years. Even with his surreptitious bolstering of the monster's stats, it hadn't been enough. Elette, upon hearing this, was furious. She was ready to march straight to the complaint center, but, realizing her own role in the debacle, she decided to keep the architect's secret. As she cautiously navigated the dimly lit cavern, Elette remained on high alert. This wasn't the controlled environment of the trial tower. Out here, danger lurked around every corner. After what felt like an eternity of wandering, she still hadn't found anything of interest. Sinking to the ground in frustration, she finally remembered she could consult a guide. Summoning her system inventory, she grabbed a book and began to read. "Ah, so it's Reincarnate," she murmured, recognizing the name. The young duke who appeared because of Zhang Jia. In the original storyline, Reincarnate, deeply admiring the protagonist, found himself torn between his loyalty and the crown prince's unreasonable commands. Forced to draw his blade against the protagonist, he grappled with the agonizing conflict between his beliefs and his duty. Finally persuaded by the protagonist, he ceased his hostility. But in the next moment, an S-rank dungeon synchronization occurred. And that synchronization stemmed from the young duke's curse, received when he saved the slime breeding grounds during his cultivation journey. Ultimately, he sacrificed himself to protect the protagonist. Watching this undeniably tragic story unfold, Elette roughly understood how to strategize against the boss. Didn't we agree not to fight the boss? Why are you still looking at the strategy guide? The architect's protesting voice rang out. Elette quickly explained that she was just worried about unforeseen circumstances. What if the boss suddenly falls from the ceiling over there? The very next second, a loud crash echoed. "Ah, you're actually serious," Elette exclaimed, realizing what was happening. Appearing before her was a group of humans, not the boss she had anticipated. The man leading the group barked orders. The group charged forward, weapons flashing. Although they failed to kill their target, they managed to temporarily repel it. Above them, another group of humans waited. Just as a mage was helping them down, Agnes suddenly appeared. Judging by their skill level, they're only capable of clearing a secret dungeon, she observed. A dungeon like this, and one of the healers even has a child with them. While I'm happy to see competent adventurers, with his abilities, he probably can't even protect his own companions. The architect, extremely uneasy, urged Elette to leave quickly. He didn't want this unexpected incident to affect his performance. As Elette hesitated, a man dressed as a priest irritably spoke up, questioning the raiding party's leader about how they planned to handle the situation. He seemed to have forgotten that it was his own actions that had awakened the boss and caused this incident. The realization made him falter, but remembering the authority of the Holy Emperor's hall behind him, he declared self-righteously, "When I return to the Order, I'll forbid sending healers to your guild." The two eavesdropping figures exchanged dumbfounded glances. Hearing the raiding party members offer to escort him out, the priest let out a cold laugh. "Protect me as I leave the dungeon? What makes you think you're capable of that? Especially when you've picked up 2 burdens along the way." "No, not 2. Now it's 3, he added, noticing Elette. "You'll be begging us to take you along too, I'm sure." Elette, caught off guard, asked, "Are you talking about me?" "Of course it's you. You're going to say you got caught in the dungeon synchronization and want to join us, aren't you?" Elette, speechless, didn't know how to respond. Unwilling to deal with such a despicable person, Agnes simply ran off. "I absolutely refuse to add any more people. Captain, you choose. Are you taking me or her? Choose between me and that woman." The man gestured towards Elette. One moment he was demanding the captain abandon the girl. The next he was offering to look after her. His insincere words only disgusted her. Just moments ago, Elette, attempting to complete her novice trial, had been transported to the Wraith's domain and discovered by this unlucky group. The priest, fearing for his life, pressed the mercenary captain to decide who to take. Just then, a young man with a strong sense of justice stepped in front of Elette, questioning the priest's behavior. He declared that if the priest continued like this, he would leave alone. Looking at the young man's back, Elette felt he seemed decent. She quickly called out to the young man, urging him to take cover. Then, she activated her healing magic. Everyone was astonished to discover she was a healer. "Have you been hiding your injured left arm this whole time? It's good to care for others, but you shouldn't neglect yourself." Then, no longer pushing so aggressively, the young man called for the injured to come forward so she could heal them. Everyone immediately crowded around her, leaving the priest trembling with rage. "Hey, all of you, get away from her." The others stared at him, dumbfounded. "You're all crowding her so much. You'll dirty this excellent healer's clothes. He pushed his way to the front, declaring fawningly, "Leave these minor injuries to me. I'll take care of her from now on." The other adventurers shot disgusted glances at the priest for his sudden change in demeanor. After Ilette had finished healing them, everyone introduced themselves. From the little girl, Ilette learned that the young man had been sleeping when the dungeon synchronization dragged him into the evil spirit's territory. Ilette couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. After all, they lived in an S-rank world where even sleeping could be fatal. The young man also told Ilette that Ray, the one who had called her auntie, had saved him. Ray, however, was speechless at being called uncle by the little girl. Seeing this, Ilette immediately teased him. "Or should I call you big brother? Speaking of which, my brother also goes to the officers' academy." Ray vehemently protested, telling her not to say such things. "I have a question. It seems you're curious about my identity. I'm a graduate of the 117th class of the officers' academy, having graduated second in my class. Following school tradition, I'm currently training to earn the title of knight. To that end, I've joined the Pure Gold Apple Brigade and become a mercenary." Hearing this, Ilette thought of her own brother, who had also graduated in the same class. This made the young man curious about who her brother was. "Karamiko," she replied. Upon learning that her brother's name was Karamiko, he flinched. He then backed away from Ilette, stammering an apology. He was terribly allergic to pink cats, he explained, so they needed to keep their distance. Looking at the bewildered Ilette, who was still unaware that her brother was the reason, another young man approached her. It was quite peculiar. That knight trainee, although arrogant, is still polite to everyone. "He probably thinks you're a bit different," he said. Ilette was taken aback. She wasn't that old, but seeing the young man scratching his head, she decided not to press the issue. She then asked him, "Were you dragged in here alone?" "No, I was with another subjugation team, but everyone except me died. I ran into this group while escaping a monster attack. I'm grateful they took me in, even though I don't even know how to use a weapon. Anyway, it's dangerous for a healer to be too far from their companions. You should stay close," he advised. Ilette didn't refuse his offer. At that moment, Agnes spoke up, warning Ilette to be careful. After all, it was strange for someone who claimed to be defenseless to have faint calluses on their hands and such a steady gait. Ilette nodded in agreement. She had felt something was off about the young man from the start. Moreover, she knew the story. He was Ishanake, a first-rate assassin from the Midnight Raid Division of the Assassin's Guild and a direct disciple of the Guildmaster. He would later be ordered by the Guild to assassinate Terry during the relief effort. Ilette resolved to keep a close eye on him. Just as she was thinking this, a terrifying roar echoed from the distance. It's the dungeon's leader. He's back. What will happen to Ilette next? Find out next Saturday. Ilette, whose strength ranked 7th on the continent, was mistaken by the man for a frail little girl. When they encountered the dreaded S7 monster, Ray, the perpetual second best, drew his sword, ready to fight. However, he immediately recoiled in terror, cursing and scrambling to escape. In his panic, he shoved the girl behind him out of the way. But the next second, the dungeon's leader stood directly before him. His luck was truly something else. The leader scooped him up in its massive maw, seemingly intending to have the priest as an appetizer. Looking at the boss's enormous body, the little girl in Ilette's arms and the architect were terrified. After all, the ghost predator, Usklia, was ranked 711th among the demon world's leaders. Its body was formed from countless ghosts, while a single ghost posed little threat. The sheer number of them before them was overwhelming. The boss, seemingly toying with its prey, burrowed into the ground. The ground began to collapse. With a deafening boom, Usklia erupted from the earth. Ilette suddenly noticed something. The priest, who had just been running for his life, wasn't dead. She also spotted the bodies of the previous subjugation team. As Ilette pondered how to save them, Usklia lunged at him, a hair's breadth from disaster. "Ilette, you need to be more careful," Agnes cried. A healer is the most important member of any team. Seeing the problem child, Ray, save her, Ilette stammered out her thanks, utterly bewildered. Ray now knew she'd been hiding her true strength. Though his mind buzzed with questions, survival against Usklia took precedence. Ilette, no longer concealing her abilities, prepared to unleash her full power against the Wraith. Ray stood poised, light on his toes, his breath shallow. Meanwhile, The mercenary company fought alongside the two young warriors, but the wraiths poured forth relentlessly. This was turning into a war of attrition. Ailette watched in silence, debating whether to reveal the full extent of her power. Just then, a chilling sound echoed through the hall as a tide of wraiths flooded the chamber. Faced with this onslaught, the group was powerless to resist. As one of the mercenary women collapsed, she noticed a mark on her hand. No one was spared. The mark appeared on everyone's hand. A low, menacing voice resonated. "I will not let a single prey escape. You will all become my feast." The eyes of the countless wraiths glowed with an eerie violet light. The mark on their hands meant that even if they escaped, they would become conduits for the dungeon. Better to die here than face that fate. Despair gripped the hearts of the trapped adventurers. But Ailette's face remained calm. Clutching the little girl, she called out to the architect. The architect of the trial skyscraper knew exactly what she was about to do. Resigned to the inevitable paperwork, he thought, "Here we go again." "Stand back," Ailette declared. "It's showtime." While other systems brought their users good fortune, hers seemed determined to get her killed. Pulled into the Wraith's domain, they faced a terrifyingly powerful leader. Ailette hesitated no longer. A brilliant light flared around her. Ding! You have activated the ultimate skill, Mercury Barrier. A wall materialized out of thin air. The mercenary stared, dumbfounded. The wraiths were unable to penetrate the barrier. Setting the little girl down, Ray realized Ailette was the source of the magic. Both young men were stunned. How could a healer wield such power? But this wasn't the time for explanations. Drawing her sword, Ailette stepped towards the barrier. The wraith writhed its body, contorting into a mask like a grotesque, blooming chrysanthemum. It spewed a stream of crimson fluid. Swearing to destroy the girl who dared interrupt its meal, the wraith attacked. Ray feared the worst, believing Ailette lost. Then, with a clatter, chains whirled, revealing Ailette unharmed. "Is that all you've got?" Ray, relieved, recognized the skill. It was the serpent's sword technique of the hero, Agnes, a powerful but notoriously difficult style to master. She wielded it with an almost effortless grace. Even if she claimed Agnes herself had taught her, he wouldn't doubt it. This girl is something else, he thought. Not only did she possess the strength of a sword saint, but also immense divine power. Ray looked at her with a newfound sense of awe and uncertainty. Ailette's playful facade dropped. "You're not cute at all," she said to the wraith. "Your master has terrible taste keeping something so ugly." The wraith was beyond furious. "How dare you insult my master with that foul mouth? I'll tear you apart." It lunged at Ailette with its gaping maw. This was exactly what she'd been waiting for. Provoking him is the key to shattering his true form, that mask. But it's tricky. He's formed from countless wraiths. Attacking the mask directly won't do much. Ailette's aiming for his neck. With a sickening tear, Usklia's head was suddenly dangling in midair. Ailette gave him no chance to recover, pressing her attack. One final blow. Ray stared, dumbfounded, at the scene before him. He might have been allergic to pink hair, but in the face of Ailette's overwhelming power, such personal feelings were utterly insignificant. As Usklia's true form finally crashed at her feet, Ray's allergy wasn't just gone. He found the way her hair swayed, utterly captivating. With the leader defeated, the other adventurers expressed their awe and gratitude to Ailette, swearing they would never forget her life-saving grace. They vowed to name their children and their children's children Ailette. Ailette quickly waved them off. She didn't want to shrink in stature from the sheer number of namesakes. Relieved to have finally dealt with Usklia, she let out a breath. Just then, a jarring voice broke the moment. Make way, out of my way, you rabble. Honestly, the noise. Someone might think I was the one who took down the dungeon boss. It was the priest who had previously been offered as a snack. One of the female mercenaries retorted, telling him to shut up if he didn't know what he was talking about. The priest ignored her, claiming he had no proof. I expect you to escort the healer back to the Holy Imperial Hall. Then, report to the Martial Medical Chamber and account for your reckless behavior. And finally, I suggest you watch your words and actions in the future. You never know who might be waiting to stab you in the back. Facing Ailette's benevolent smile, the priest fell silent. His assistants then wheeled him away. Aylett urged the others to head home, but kept Ishanake back. Ray, looking bewildered, hurried forward, claiming he needed to speak with Aylett privately. Meanwhile, the others thanked Aylett again. Seeing the peace and order she brought wherever she went, the mercenary woman smiled gratefully. Then, turning to Ray, she asked why he was standing so close, considering his supposed allergy to pink hair. Ishanake stood by, waiting patiently. "If you don't mind," Ray began, "would you accompany me to the Valacustan domain? I'd like to properly repay you." Aylett, oblivious, simply stared. Only then did she realize the man before her was Raven Valacustan, the young duke. Surprised, she thought, in the original story he was supposed to be first in the officers' academy. How is he second now? Do you also think the young Duke Valacustan is useless for not being first? Realizing Ray had heard her mumbling, Aylett stammered, I misspoke. I believe in you. After all, you're the top student at the Officers' Academy. Prince Prince's sister must be just as upright as he is. Ray was taken aback. His brother was first in the Officers' Academy? He had no idea. He watched Aylett, who had started muttering to herself again. Ray wondered if she was all right, but extended his hand nonetheless. I want to bestow upon you a knighthood. You possess such incredible strength, yet it remains hidden. Talent like yours shouldn't be buried. Won't you come with me? He didn't know that Aylett was the king's cherished granddaughter. Upon learning this, he froze, utterly petrified, deflated. He turned to leave, but Aylett stopped him. You will become a fine knight someday. If the opportunity arises, I will visit your domain. Please take care. You too, he replied. With Ray gone, only Ishanake and Aylett remained. We're both busy, so I'll be blunt. Your assassination mission isn't over, is it? Tell me, who is your target? If it's a child, I won't let you leave. Seeing that Aylett knew his secret, Ishanake dropped the pretense. You should be holding a weapon when you threaten someone, especially when facing an assassin. One moment, he was practically worshipping the girl. The next, he'd slashed at her with a blade. Aylett hadn't expected this. The man's attack had already grazed her cheek. Witnessing this, Agnes was furious, roaring about wanting to put a hole in the man's head. Hearing this, Aylett thought, Agnes, have you forgotten that Ishanake is an important character in the original story? Agnes continued to yell, urging Aylett to teach him a lesson, then told her not to hold back. Aylett tightened the wires in her hand. In the next instant, bright red blood flowed from Ishanake's neck. Countless wires now bound him. Did you really think I'd come to confront you unprepared? Ishanake hadn't anticipated this. The steel wires in Aylett's hands were her spoils of war from the boss on the 298th floor. They were the strings of the Elven King's harp. Fortunately, thanks to Agnes's training over the years, she was proficient with all weapons. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to subdue Ishanake so easily today. Ishanake grimaced. So that's how you want to play it, huh? But in the next second, Aylett was taken aback. I surrender. Please spare my life. Then followed a torrent of words, claiming he was just passing by and wasn't trying to assassinate anyone. Though speechless, Aylett was irritated by Ishanake's blatant lies. Please, I want to live. I swear before I die, I won't touch a single hair on anyone you know. Aylett was stunned by his shamelessness. She couldn't understand if the young man was insane, but she spared his life. Freed from his restraints, Ishanake brightened, eagerly trying to recruit Aylett into becoming an assassin. After receiving her firm refusal, he could only resign himself to leaving. However, before departing, he declared he would repay her for saving his life and would never harm anyone close to her. Watching Ishanake's retreating figure, Aylett thought she'd have to avoid this lunatic in the future. Despite the little interruption, she had passed the 299th floor's trial. Listening to the system's congratulatory message, Agnes sighed in exasperation. But considering the incident stemmed from uncontrollable factors, she decided not to pursue the matter further. With the 299th floor's trial concluded, Aylett was exhausted. However, thinking about the spoils she'd acquired after defeating the boss, she felt satisfied. Although the Transmigrator's cash shop included most skill books, those were skills universally applicable across different worlds. They didn't encompass skills specific to particular worldviews. Therefore, collecting non-marketable skill books by defeating dungeon bosses was the best option. And this time, she had obtained a very useful non-marketable skill book, Reverse Predation. When fighting enemies that could devour others, it increased the probability of inflicting critical hits. In this S-ranked difficulty world, danger lurked everywhere. Elette didn't hesitate to use it. Although she didn't know if Ishinek would keep his word, perhaps things would change when he went to assassinate Ray. Agnes was very displeased with Elette provoking a key character in the original story and instructed her to focus on training. But in the next second, Agnes lost her composure, seeing Elette relentlessly charging towards the 300th floor, muttering excitedly. By now, the architect had written half of the report, wearily muttering, "I'm tired. Whatever. It's ruined." Agnes pounded her chest in frustration. But there was nothing she could do to stop Elette. After all, she was already standing before the gate to the 300th floor. Sword in hand, she pushed the gate open. Agnes could only protest. Just what is Elette going to do to the storyline? Elette paid no attention. Could she really run into another main character? It seemed like she'd jinxed herself. As the holy light before her dimmed, Elette's eyes widened. Ding! You have entered the level 5 difficulty dungeon, the hill where the holy demon sword is sealed. A man covered in blood knelt on the crimson grassland, clutching a sword. Could that be Ray? Ray, too, noticed the commotion behind him. He couldn't believe he'd encounter Elette here. Meanwhile, a malevolent spirit, its entire body black as blood, launched an attack on Teshalid, jolting Elette awake. Practice intercepted the spirit's attack, positioning himself between the two. He hasn't even been reborn yet. How could you kill him? He could have relied on luck to safely navigate the novice trial period. But the girl, ignoring all warnings, had come to ASCII, the spirit's domain. The hill where the holy demon sword is sealed. Although this dungeon could be cleared simply by the chosen one drawing the holy sword, the prerequisite was being chosen by the sword. Otherwise, it would transform into the most terrifying, most cruel demonic sword, controlling its host and seeking blood to enhance its power, with a thirst for killing. This dungeon appeared every 60 years. Thus, the Order had experienced both the Holy Sword's manifestation and the demonic sword's rampage. As the descendant of someone once chosen by the Holy Sword, Illowin oddly, people speculated he would replace his deceased grandfather and become the Holy Sword's master. But Catraleia hadn't chosen him. Instead, she gave the opportunity to Teshalid. This birthed within Illowin extreme suspicion, resentment, rage, and a torrent of other emotions. While everyone was sweeping through the dungeon's Ghost Knight order, Illowin drew the sword. Without any surprise, he was demonized by it. With a single, effortless swing, he obliterated the ordinary people who hadn't managed to escape, the 3 knight orders the Order prided itself on, and the exceedingly rare healers, all reduced to ashes in an instant. Only Teshalid survived, and the moment the assault on the boss began, the dungeon's exit had already closed. Teshalid fought Illowin for hours, his vision blurring. He understood no reinforcements were coming and prepared to accept his fate. But then a surprising voice came from behind him. A girl in a pink hat was looking directly at him. Even after so many years, Teshalid recognized her instantly. It was Elette, as she blocked Illowin's fatal blow. Teshalid stared at the girl in a daze, seeing Teshalid's severe injuries and the urgent need for healing. Elette, aiming for a swift victory, launched an arrow at Illowin. Ignoring his ranting, Elette raised her sword high. In a flash, she severed Illowin's arm. But Elette found no joy in it, because at this moment, Illowin possessed the ability to heal himself. After a brief moment of thought, Elette charged towards Illowin. Their speeds were now evenly matched. But Elette knew her strength and swordsmanship gave her an edge. She had to seize the moment he became careless. When Illowin landed an arrow on Elette's shoulder, and while he reveled in that small victory, Elette knew her chance had come. Without a moment's hesitation, she launched her counterattack. As Illowin leaped high, pleased with himself for dodging the attack, he saw Elette unleash her snake-belly sword spike, influenced by the passive skill Reverse Predation, which increased the probability of inflicting fatal wounds. She severed Illowin's other sword arm, as Elette prepared to attack his remaining arm. Illowin, about to flee, remembered the demonic sword's power. Recalling the sword to his hand, he swung, the sword energy flying straight towards the injured Teshulet. To save the hero's life, the girl, who had been unexpectedly transported, launched a fierce attack on the evil spirit. Realizing he couldn't withstand the girl's assault, Ilowin, after summoning the demonic sword back, launched a sneak attack on Teshulet. Ilet's heart leaped into her throat. A boom echoed. Thankfully, Ilet reacted quickly and stopped him. Seeing that Teshulet was unharmed, Ilet finally breathed a sigh of relief. It was then that they realized Ilowin was gone. Ilet wasn't worried about his escape. After all, to recover, he needed to kill 1,000 more people. Now, the most important thing was to heal Teshulet. As Ilet tended to his wounds, a system notification sounded. Due to the passive skill, Healer's Affinity, healing effects are increased by 400%. Ilet suddenly remembered. When she defeated Rodrigo, she had acquired this healer-exclusive skill, and this skill only worked on Teshulet. Seeing Teshulet's condition improve, Ilet's heart eased. Just as she was about to take Teshulet to rest, she realized her own wounds were completely healed. Ilet was stunned, wondering if something was wrong. Then she remembered Teshulet had learned an ability. He could transfer Ilet's wounds to himself. Looking at the blood seeping from Teshulet's shoulder, Ilet wasn't sure if he had used it. After receiving confirmation, Ilet couldn't understand why Teshulet, already weakened and on the verge of death, would do such a thing. But then she recalled her conversation with her brother, defending Teshulet. If he could hear you say that, he'd be so happy. Understanding dawned on Ilet, and she no longer blamed him. She softly thanked him. Gazing at the girl he longed for, Teshulet shyly lowered his head. Then, as Ilet watched in surprise, he collapsed in her arms, unconscious. Meanwhile, the fleeing Ilowin, supporting his weakened body, gritted his teeth, furious at Ilet's interference. Remembering the power Ilet had displayed, fear gripped his heart. He was unwilling to die so pointlessly at the hands of that terrifying woman. Just then, a voice whispered in his ear, "Do you desire power? I am Carpius, Master of Shenelo. I ask you again, lowly beast, do you desire power? Do you wish to surpass your limits and obtain unparalleled strength?" After a brief hesitation, knowing he had no other choice, Ilowin chose to trust the mysterious voice. This was the girl and the protagonist's second encounter. After driving away the evil spirit, Ilet carefully administered a potion to Teshulet. However, because he had exhausted his strength and stamina during the battle, pushing himself too hard, his body was severely damaged. His skill level seems to be that of a high-ranking sword or a master. At most, he can only handle a few ridgebacks single-handedly. If you hadn't intervened, he'd probably be dead. Ilet listened to Agnes's blunt assessment, but didn't agree. Although Teshulet hadn't been reborn yet and could only solo level 1 dungeons, as the protagonist of the novel, even without Ilet's intervention, he wouldn't die. According to the original plot, Teshulet was stabbed by the demon sword's wielder, but because the blow missed any vital points, he survived long enough for reinforcements to arrive. In short, Teshulet's survival was thanks to the wielder's arrogance and Teshulet's own luck. But the thought of Teshulet dying because of her interference, she had barely begun to consider it when the inspector warned Ilet that if the protagonist died here, something incredibly terrible would happen. Since your intervention changed the plot, you are responsible for saving Teshulet. Even if the inspector hadn't demanded it, Ilet would have found a way to save him. After all, if the protagonist died before gaining his rebirth ability, the world would be erased and the distortion of the plot would create a singularity, leading to a catastrophic disaster. Ilet wouldn't allow that to happen. Seeing Ilet suddenly pale, Agnes expressed concern. Besides, she herself wasn't feeling any different. Lying beside Teshulet, Ilet suddenly noticed something peculiar. Just gazing at Teshulet's handsome face brought Ilet a sense of comfort. This realization struck her with such disbelief that she fell into a daze. "Your eyes are practically sparkling. You're going to melt him with that stare," Agnes teased. Ilet was captivated. How could someone be so handsome? He'd always been good-looking, even as a child, but now he was truly breathtaking. He deserved his reputation as the most handsome man in the world. This also caught the attention of the spirit judging souls in the heavenly court. Both Agnes and the spirit covered their mouths, captivated. Agnes teased Ilet, asking if Teshulet was her first love. After all, Ilet had been clamoring to find him ever since leaving the Earl's mansion. Ilet couldn't understand why Agnes would say such a thing. They weren't like that. The Watcher, however, seemed a bit distressed. Ilet had saved his life twice now. The spirit judging souls chimed in, urging Alette to buy a marriage certificate. All right, Agnes conceded. He's a complete fool. His taste is so bad. He only likes women who leech off him. Hearing this, Agnes felt even more certain of her suspicions. A short while later, Alette returned with an armful of food, intending for Teshelid to eat and regain his strength when he awoke. Agnes watched this scene, completely bewildered. This didn't look like romantic love at all. It was more like a grandmother doting on her grandson. Soon, Alette began to feel sleepy. Asking Agnes to wake her when Teshelid stirred, Alette drifted off to sleep. But only 2.5 hours later, Agnes frantically called out to the sleeping girl. Alette initially thought monsters were attacking. Agnes explained that Teshelid had woken up and she assumed he had gone to relieve himself. But he hadn't returned after a long time. Could he have gone to challenge the demonic swords wielder alone? Alette wondered aloud, uncertain. Alette quickly guessed where Teshelid had gone. She found him praying for his fallen comrades. Alette and Agnes watched quietly from a distance, not approaching. Agnes was astonished that Teshelid, under such circumstances, was collecting the bodies of everyone and holding a funeral. He was either a saint or had something wrong with him. Teshelid then noticed Alette and approached her, explaining his actions. Doing this was unexpected, Alette admitted, seeing Teshelid nod in agreement. Alette immediately offered him food. Teshelid was happy that Alette was still the same, always trying to feed him. Yes, Teshelid said, taking the food, and I'm still on your side. It's been a while, Alette. It's been a while, Teshelid, Alette replied. As they spoke, a bloody aura filled the sky. Alette's eyes widened in disbelief.